So hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 1, what if Naruto becomes a Wind Jutsu Prodigy from Secret Scrolls. And I won't explain the entire incident of the Nine Tails attack because I find it boring. I will just mention important events related to the story. But before we start, don't forget to destroy the like and subscribe button. We are so close to hit 1k subscribers, and for the next part, check out my playlist. So here we go. The date was October 10 in the village of Konoha. In night, QP attacked the Leaf Village. How did a very large nine-tailed fox sneak up on a shinobi village of shinobi? Only 2 people thought of that and knew the answer. The first was Namikaze Minato, the Yondaime Hokage of the village. However, he couldn't tell anyone else for he had just sealed the giant beast into his own son. The other was Uzumaki Kushina. She knew how the QP appeared because she had seen it once before when she was a little girl. As she lay in her hospital bed, she remembered it well as it destroyed her homeland and left nothing but waste. But her father had killed the one who summoned it. Or, at least, that's what it seemed. Then she saw him. He stood before her dressed in black with pins and bolts in his skin to preserve his life. His left eye was closed while his right was open to reveal his Sharingan. It was him. The man who summoned QP in the land of the Uzumaki clan. The man that her father killed along with himself. Uchiha Madara. It took a long time to find you, he said as he sneered at her. I never would have thought to come back home. If you are here to finish what you started you are too late, said Kushina with no hint of fear. My son is safe. For the moment, replied Madara with an ice-cold smile. He is a helpless baby. Killing him will be a simple matter for me. Kushina then started to laugh, and Madara looked confused. Tell me, what's so funny? You think you have won, but you have lost big time, said Kushina with a grin. Minato has taken your QB away from you, and at the same time made sure you won't kill my son. Impossible, declared Madara. There is no way he could kill QB. Whoever said that QB is dead, said Kushina. Minato has sealed him into our son. If he dies, the QB dies as well. And knowing him, Minato placed a few safeguards on the seal so that Naruto will one day be able to control QB's power. Madara, having enough of this, raised his hand and slapped her. But she only glared back at him in response as his Sharingan began to change. For this defiance you will suffer forever, he said as space and time began to warp around Kushina. Believe me when I say forever. Where you are going time has no meaning. You will live forever with the knowledge that I will find a way to get back the QB. And when I do, I will bring you back so you can watch as I rip it out of your son. Kushina screamed as she was sent into the space and time warp, leaving behind nothing. A few moments later the hospital doctors came into the room to see what the noise was. Inside, they found nothing. The Hokage was informed of this at once, and Sarutobi ordered a search of the entire village and the outlying villages as well. He knew she wasn't the type of person to abandon her child, and there was no way she could leave since she had just given birth. Minutes turned into hours and hours turned to days, and they found nothing. The Inyazuka clan had their dogs all over the place and found nothing. The Yamanaka clan probed the minds of several doctors and found nothing as well. Every inch of the village was searched and all they found were a couple of kids smoking. Despite this, Sarutobi never gave up hope. He believed that she was still out there somewhere. Until then, he would watch over Naruto and do his best to fulfill their last wishes. Yet some things are not so easily done. The council and the villagers believed that Naruto was the QB reborn and screamed for his blood. The shinobi wanted to turn him into a weapon. Sarutobi tried to talk some sense into them, but it went in one ear and out the other. In the end he was only able to pass a few laws that he thought would help give Naruto a chance with the next generation. Years later, a nameless Chunin entered his apartment after a long mission. He had just gotten back from an escort mission to Yuki no Kuni. While the mission was a bust, he had managed to get his hands on some scrolls. You see, the man they were escorting was a collector of Jutsu scrolls and was looking for several new ones to add to his large collection that he always kept with him. Sadly, the local shinobi didn't like that at all. During the confusion the Chunin was able to grab 2 random scrolls and make a break for it. The Chunin walked over to his kitchen table and sat down. He then reached into his bag and pulled them out. One had the Suna symbol on it, while the other had the Yuki symbol on it. Deciding to open the Suna one first, he breaks the seal and began to read it. What the hell? He shouted aloud. Inside the scroll were several wind jutsus that were C to B rank. There was a defensive one and 2 offensive ones. He, on the other hand, was an earth user and had a harder time with jutsus that involved water and wind. Also, he was hoping for something more powerful to impress everyone when he finally took the Jonin exam. He set the scroll down and opened the other. This one held only Hyoten. Kakuryubo Fusetsu, an A-rank jutsu. However, this jutsu used a lot of chakra and his 2 worst elements. In his frustration, he threw both the scrolls out his window. Meanwhile, a 5-year-old Naruto was outside looking through the trash for food. He had been living on his own for a few weeks since he had been kicked out of the orphanage. He was given a weekly allowance to pay for his own food and stuff, but the villagers would only sell him stuff far worse than the stuff he was looking at now. Plus, they would take every dime he had. Suddenly, he felt something hit him on the head. Two somethings to be precious. Naruto rubbed the top of his head and saw the scrolls. He opened the first one and came to realize something. He didn't know how to read. Picking up both scrolls in his tiny arms, he ran off to the only person who would help him. Sarutobi was in his office with his paperwork when there was a knock on the door. "Come in," he said. A moment later he saw Naruto in a dirty oversized shirt and blue shorts holding two scrolls. "Ah, what can I do for you today, Naruto?" "Aji-san, could you read these scrolls to me?" asked Naruto. "I think they're stories because they have pictures." The Hokage chuckled as he picked up the child and set him on his lap. He then opened the first scroll and then looked over at Naruto, who was staring at him wide-eyed, eager to hear a story. "I'm sorry, but these are Jutsu scrolls," said Sarutobi. "Where did you get them?" "I was looking for some food and they fell out of the sky," said Naruto as he waved his hands around. "They hit me on the head and it hurt." "What's a jutsu?" Sarutobi sighed. No matter what he did, life didn't get better for the boy as he had hoped. The children mirrored the actions of the adults and began to hate Naruto for no reason. Even when he gave him his own place, things were difficult for him. Then, a thought entered his head. "Well, Naruto," he said at last. "They are really cool powers that shinobi have." "What?" cried the boy. "That's not fair. I want powers too." "Oh, are you sure?" asked the Hokage innocently. "I mean, there is a lot of work needed to become a shinobi. And, if you work hard enough, you become a Hokage like me." "Really?" asked Naruto. He had seen how people treated the old man for a while. They would bow to him and say nice things. He always had nice clothing and a nice place to stay. He had always wondered why, and if being a shinobi did that, then it might work for him. "Aji-san, I want to become a shinobi." "Well then," said the Hokage, "I'll have to make some arrangements for next year so you can go with other people your age. How does that sound?" The small boy only nodded in response. "Now, do you have any questions?" "Ah, what kind of power, I mean jutsus, are on these scrolls?" asked the boy. "Well, this scroll here has Futon jutsus and this one over here has a Hyutin," said Sarutobi. "Futon jutsus are jutsus that use the wind while Hyutin jutsus use ice." "I think I can understand the ice, Aji-san," said Naruto as he remembered being hit by an icicle someone threw at him. "But wind is lame." "Oh really?" laughed the old man. "Well, do you know what a tornado is?" Naruto nodded. "What about a hurricane?" Again the boy nodded. "Well, those are really powerful winds. With the right Futon, a shinobi can blow his opponent away, cut him to shreds, or create a powerful defense. In fact, I have heard that some people in Suna have been able to fly." Now this wasn't exactly true. In Suna, the most anyone has ever been able to do was glide with the use of a fan or make a more controlled fall. However, it's just easier to tell a 5-year-old that they are flying. "Cool," exclaimed Naruto. "Just you wait, I'll be flying in no time." Chuckled the old man. "You're just like your mother." Sarutobi then realized that he had made a mistake. He shouldn't have told the boy about his mother. "You knew my mother?" asked the boy quietly. "Where is she? Did she leave me because I was bad?" Now this is why he didn't want to talk about that. "No, Naruto," said Sarutobi. "We don't know what happened to her. But I know for sure that she didn't choose to leave you. You were all she talked about before she disappeared, and I knew she was excited to be a mother. It wasn't because of you." Naruto looked a little down, so Sarutobi decided to do something special for him. He remembered reading in a magazine that children learn faster when they are younger and that it was better to start them on some things sooner rather than later. "Well, Naruto, how about I give you a couple early lessons since?" "What kind of lessons, Aji-san?" "Just some chakra control lessons," he said. "It is very important and will help you later on. Now, I'll only show you these exercises and these exercises alone besides learning how to read. We can't have people thinking I'm playing favorites. Once you are done with these you will have to learn the rest on your own. Do you have any questions?" "Only one, Aji-san," replied Naruto. "What's chakra?" Sarutobi could tell this was going to be a long day. "Are you sure that you have everything?" asked the Hokage. "Hi, Aji-san," said Naruto as he packed his bag with pencils, scrolls, and ramen for lunch. The day was Naruto's first day at the academy and the boy was very excited. He would finally be able to spend time with other children. The best part was that their parents wouldn't be there to pull them away from him. That was a very happy thought for the young blonde. Since that day Naruto had found the scrolls, he had been training hard. Despite his young age he had a very large amount of chakra and stamina, so he could train longer than most. Still, Sarutobi started him off with the leaf exercise as an intro to chakra control. It took a while for Naruto to get the hang of it, but after a while he was able to do it with no problem. Then came the tree walking exercise. The old man took the boy out to one of the empty training fields and watched him as he fell and got back up. It took the boy about a month to get the hang of it and then only a week and a half to complete the water walking exercise. Sarutobi was very proud of the boy. Like he had said, the remainder of the time was spent teaching Naruto how to read and write. They would spend about 2 hours on it a day and then Naruto was sent back to his apartment with exercises to work on by himself. Yet that's not all Naruto was doing. Once he had learned enough, the boy would sneak into the library at night and read what they had. The reason he had to sneak in was because of the old lady who worked there had a ruler and would used it on him the moment he stepped into the building. Luckily for him, she was never a shinobi and no one ever seemed to go near the building at night. So, Naruto was free to read up more on the subject of wind. About a week after he started his nightly visits, he found a scroll that talked about chakra nature and manipulation. Grabbing the scroll in a dictionary, he began to read and look up the words he didn't know. After about an hour and a half of this, Naruto got up and looked for an easier scroll or book. In the end he found Nature Chakra for Bakas. This one was much easier to follow. As soon as he was finished, Naruto decided to try it out. So the first thing he did was to get one of the special pieces of paper needed to determine chakra affinity after his lesson with the Hokage. While it had cost him half of his allowance, he felt it was worth it. Also, he had found a great raiment stand that didn't overcharge him, the Ichiraku raiment stand. As soon as he found out that he was a wind type, which thrilled him, he set to work on his training. After consulting Nature Chakra for Bakas, Naruto went to work on the first exercise, which was to cut a leaf with his chakra. This, however, proved to be harder than it sounded to the small boy since he is still working on it. This brings us to today. Well, it seems you have everything, said Sarutobi after checking the bag. Now remember to ask your sensei for the hot water you'll need to boil your noodles. Now you better get going. Hi, cheered Naruto as he raced out the door. Sarutobi just chuckled as he simply vanished from the room so he could also get the academy. When Naruto got to the academy, all the other students were standing next to their parents or an older sibling. A few caught his eye. The first was a boy with red markings on his face who was standing with his mother who had a dog next to her. Keeping the eager to go over there and pet the dog at bay, he looked over at a father and son who were both wearing sunglasses. Then he saw a creepy looking man with black hair and eyes and was dressed in fancy looking clothing that had a fan on the back. Next to him was a boy who looked about the same but a bit more casual in dress. There were only two there who weren't with their family besides himself. The first was a girl with lavender pupil-less eyes and blue hair. She was dressed in a light blue shirt and tan shorts. She seemed a bit nervous, but Naruto didn't know why. Next to her was a woman with long black hair and red eyes in the Chunin uniform. In fact, Naruto remembered seeing her with the Hokage several times in the past. While he didn't know either of them, it was painfully obvious to anyone that they weren't related. The other child was also a girl. She had purple hair and was dressed in a dark brown shirt with light-colored shorts. She seemed to be all alone. After the Hokage's speech, the parents talked to each other for a bit while their kids got to meet each other. Upon seeing Naruto, several parents whispered to their children to stay away from him and did not state why. Others spoke harshly about the fact that he was being allowed in. Can you believe that the Hokage is letting them into the academy? I'm about ready to pull my son out of there because of those two. I know. It's bad enough that they are letting that girl attend classes with the rest of the children. I mean, with her lineage she'll end up like her grandfather. At least her parents had the right idea in taking their own lives. I never did really like them much anyways. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. But that demon child is much worse. SHH. You know the law. Naruto stopped listening as they were being called into class. The boy followed the other students into the building and then to their classroom. Once in the room, he took a seat next to the boy with the fan symbol on his shirt. While waiting for his sensei to arrive, he scanned the room and noticed that he couldn't find the purple-haired girl. Before he could do a second search, two Chunins entered the room. Hello everyone, said the one with a scar on his nose in a cheery voice. My name is Yumino Iruka and I'll be your sensei until you graduate. This is my assistant Mizuki. Now let's take roll. One by one he called out names and the students would reply in some way. Then, Mitarashi Anko. For a moment nothing happened. Iruka was about to say something until his Chunin senses picked up on an object heading towards the window. Both he and Mizuki jumped back as a black bowl-shaped mass broke the window and came into the room very quickly. Then, before it hit the wall, kunais came out of its sides and pinned it to the wall. Shortly after it hit the wall, everyone could hear the sounds of a struggle going on inside of it. Iruka walked over and then, when he was close enough, pulled out a kunai of his own and cut lightly into the purple-haired girl that pooped out of the cut and looked a bit dizzy. She quickly got a hold of herself, got up, and picked up a piece of the cloth. She had a horrified look on her face, like she was going to cry. I, sniff, worked all night on this, she said. It was, sniff, supposed to explode open so everyone, sniff, would remember my name. Everyone in the room sweat dropped. Ah, are you Mitarashi Anko by any chance? Asked Iruka. The girl looked up at him with sad puppy dog eyes. Hi, she said. Just go take your seat, said Iruka as an eye twitched. Please call me, let her be the only troublemaker. Is that too much to ask for? With that, Iruka continued calling out his students' names. When he got to Naruto's, his voice turned cold and hard. Naruto, in turn, tried to answer back as cheerfully as he could, which only caused Iruka to snap at him. The rest of the day seemed to crawl by. Whenever Naruto raised his hand it was either ignored or he was told to be quiet. The other students saw this and would laugh with only a few exceptions. Later, the class was split between the boys and the girls. The boys were taken outside to do some muscle building exercises, while the girls were started in flower arrangement. When they came back to the classroom, they continued with the normal lessons. When lunch finally came, Naruto walked out with his fellow classmates, with tears falling down his face. The cause of this was a number of things. One of them was the fact that he had hoped that people here would at least try to be nice. But that wasn't the case, as they had walked out he had tried to talk to the other students, only to be told to go away. In a way it was worse than before. In the past, he wasn't part of a group. Now that he was and surrounded by people no one was making him feel welcome like they did with others. The other reason was that half his face was bright red and his clothes were damp. When Naruto had gone to ask for hot water like the Hokage told him to, he had asked the Kunoichi teacher. She, in turn, screamed at him and then threw the hot kettle at him. Now he was wet, his face stung, and he was lonely. He sat alone under a tree with a swing on it and pondered if things could get worse. He was so lost in thought that he missed seeing someone walk up to him. Whatcha do? Naruto looked up and saw the girl called Anko. She was pointing to his reddened skin that was starting to fade. Ah. Were you mean to sensei? She asked. Or did someone else do something? I don't know, replied Naruto quickly. I don't think I did anything to her. She just threw the kettle at me after I asked her for some water. At that, Anko looked a little disappointed. Too bad, she said as she sat next to him. I don't like her that much. She just talks about how her class will help me become a proper lady. And her class is so boring. Flower arrangement is driving me crazy and it's only the first day. Wait, said Naruto both alarmed and amused. You can get crazier than coming into class by a window. That's kind of scary. Hey, it would have been so cool if it had worked, she said in defense with a light blush. If it had then everyone would have been all wow and sensei would have been impressed. Naruto smiled and she then decided to change the subject. So why aren't you playing or eating with the rest of them? Why aren't you? Counted Naruto. Grown-ups tell their kids to stay away from me, she said reluctantly as she lowered her head. My grandfather did something really bad that no one wants to talk about. So they say that I'll end up like him since I'm related. Anko then clenched her fists. I don't even look like him. I know how you feel, said Naruto. Anko looked up and gave him a questioning look so he continued. I don't know why, but people hate me. Wherever I go there is someone ready to hurt me. At least you know why people treat you that way. Then, an idea came to him. He turned to Anko and gave her a foxy grin. Maybe we should do something about it. Meanwhile, in the Hokage's office, Iruka was having a nice chat with the Hokage. And by nice chat I mean Iruka was pissed off that he got stuck with the traitor's granddaughter and the vessel of the creature that killed his parents. So he wasn't a happy camper. How could you do that? Demanded Iruka. To put those two in the same room is just asking for trouble. Don't worry, said Sarutobi as he calmly sipped some tea. I told Shino before he got to the academy not to bring any fleas into the classroom because they might land on Kiba. Iruka began to sweat drop. I'm talking about Uzumaki and Mitarashi, stated Iruka. Can you even imagine what would happen if those two bonded? Actually I'm hoping that they will, said Sarutobi. What they need is to have a normal childhood and that includes friends. No one else will let them play with their children and I certainly can't force them to. Trust me, this is for the best. But that's dangerous, insisted Iruka. With their backgrounds they might end up destroying the village. Sarutobi sighed and gave Iruka a stern look. I'm disappointed in you, he said. I would have hoped that you would have at least gotten to know them before making such harsh decisions. If you want to judge them based on their family tree I'll tell you a few things. Anko's parents were highly respected until Orochimaru betrayed us all. That's when everyone turned on they, including their so-called friends. Even after Anko was born they continued to torment them until they took their own lives. And Naruto, well, I can't tell you his lineage, but trust me when I say his parents were good people. But none of that really matters. They are their own person and they will choose their own paths. Anko is not Orochimaru and Naruto isn't the QB. But Hokage-sama. Learn the difference, interrupted the old man, between children and the monsters they have been forced into association with. If you don't, they will become a self-fulfilling prophecy created by you and the other villagers. Now, I believe you have to get back to class. The lunch break soon ended and both teachers and students returned to their rooms. When Iruka entered his room he noticed that Naruto and Anko were now sitting next to each other. They were talking quietly with each other while writing something down on a piece of paper. Iruka just sighed and then called the call to order so he could finish the lessons for the day. For the rest of the day the only interruptions he got were some giggles from Naruto and Anko as they plotted their revenge. The next day, the Kunoichi teacher woke up as a Haruno. Time passes and the two became good friends. Anko, as it turned out, loved to prank people as much as Naruto did. There were times, however, when her idea of a prank went a little too far. Those were the times that Naruto had to keep her from harming not only herself but others as well. Another thing that they had in common was that they lived alone. Anko lived in the house that her parent had left her, which was nice. So, since they had no one to help them at home they would train with each other as well as studying together. Unlike other girls in the class that stood out like Sakura and Ino, Anko was serious about her training. The other girls were only doing it to reenact a fairy tale. Basically, they get kidnapped and their shinobi hero comes to the rescue and there's a touch of them living happily ever after. Anko, on the other hand, said that she would blast anyone who tried to do that to her with a super cool jutsu. A few months after the first day at the academy, Naruto was in the woods alone. It was getting dark and he was still working on the leaf exercise. So far he had only made a small cut on the leaf, but it was getting bigger slowly. While this was an amazing feat for someone who wasn't even a genin, he was still frustrated that he wasn't further along. He was beginning to make a little more progress when he heard something. It was the sounds of twigs breaking and leaves crunching. Someone was coming. A moment later he heard something else, crying. Then Naruto saw her. It was the blue-haired girl that was in his class. She was wearing a dark blue kimono that had a fall leaf pattern on it and there was evidence that she had fallen several times. Her hair was a mess as it had twigs and other things in it, probably from falling. From her eyes down was soaked in her tears. When she saw Naruto, she took a step back in shock. Sorry, she said through her tears. I didn't think anyone would be here. She then moved to run in the other direction when Naruto suddenly moved over to her and grabbed her hand. She looked back at him and saw a concerned face. It's alright, he said. But, don't you think you should go be with Utausen and Kasen? I'm sure right now they are worried about you. The blue-haired girl suddenly began to cry harder and shook her head. Realizing that he had made things worse, he thought of what to say next. What's wrong? I don't have a Tausen and sob Kasana anymore, she cried as she fell to the ground on her hands and knees. Beads of sweat began to roll down Naruto's body as he realized that once again he had made things worse. He then began to search his brain for something that might help. The only thing that he got was from some TV show he had seen once. Deciding to try it out, Naruto sat down on the ground and brought her over so she was crying in his lap. He then began to gently rub her back with one hand until she calmed down a bit. All better? He asked. Slowly she lifted her body into a sitting position and, with a light blush, nodded weakly. So what's your name? Ayu, she started, but stopped herself. Hinata. Nice to meet you Hinata, said Naruto in an upbeat voice, hoping that it would catch. I'm Uzumaki Naruto. Now, can you please tell me what happened? My cousin went to the hospital because she was having a baby, said Hinata. She left with my Tausen, but only he came back. He then pulled me into office as soon as he came back. He didn't say anything to me as he sat down and signed a fancy paper. He then called someone else in and told him to have it be brought to the Hokage. When I asked him what was going on he said that my cousin had died while giving birth. Then he told me to leave B because the paper he had signed legally disowned me from the clan. Now, please remember that Naruto is a 6-year-old. He also lives by himself. The only things he reads are coupons for ramen and training scrolls. So his first thought was a bit understandable. What does legally disowned mean? That thought echoed through his head until his tenant heard it. You baka, said the QB. Well, he only yelled the baka part. Let me put this in terms you might understand. Her mommy died and now her daddy has decided to throw her on the street like garbage. Is that simply enough for you? While Naruto couldn't hear the QB, he did somehow manage to figure it out. Don't worry Hinata, he's just a jerk, said Naruto. How about we go see the Hokage? I'm sure he'll know what to do. Naruto then got up and then held out his hand to help Hinata. Hinata started to reach out to take it, but then she pulled back. Why are you being so nice? She asked. Am I really that pathetic? Tears began to reform in her eyes. No, said Naruto quickly. I just want to help. It has nothing to do with how strong or weak you are. Then he remembered something that the old man had once told him. Besides, Ajusen says that those who are truly strong know when to ask and accept help. Hinata hesitated for only a moment before taking his hand. While this was going on, Hiashi was sitting with the Hyuga elders as his late wife's will was being read. And finally, read the elder, I wish that my daughter, Hyuga Hinata, be well taken care of. She is my treasure and I wish for her to be safe and happy. Is that it? Asked Hiashi. The elder simply nodded. Then all shall be done except for the last part. At this, the elders began to whisper to each other for a moment. Then, one of them spoke. Hiashi-sama, surely you know that our laws clearly states that we follow the last wishes of. He was then cut off when Hiashi held up his hand to silence him. She asked that Hyuga Hinata be well taken care of, he said in an uncaring tone. However, shortly after my wife's death I disowned the girl. There is no longer a Hyuga Hinata in this clan, so I am no longer bound to that last wish. The council stared at Hiashi, while, most of them, doing their best to hold back their disgust. It was true that many felt that Hinata was weak, however they also wouldn't dismiss the fact that she was still a little girl and had time still to grow. There was also the issue of their image. To those outside the clan they were seen as a heartless, cold, and yet powerful clan. Hinata seemed to be a breath of fresh air that slightly improved their image with her warm and kind nature. Hiashi, however, felt that their old image was fine and that as long as they were powerful, nothing else mattered. Lastly, what if Hiashi's newborn daughter died due to illness? They would have no one to replace her with. Let's not forget about the moral problems. I mean, to toss out a little girl onto the streets with nothing shortly after her mother died. Hiashi, can you say I'm going to hell? Sure you can. Hiashi-sama, said one of the elders who shared Hiashi's opinion of Hinata and approved of his actions. I think that was a wise decision. However, I wasn't made aware of any sealing ceremony. That's because there wasn't one, said Hiashi. I doubt that the girl will even be able to last the night. When her body is found, it will be properly disposed of like the rest of the homeless trash in this village. But, what if she doesn't? Asked the same elder. Or, what if someone finds her and takes her out of the village? She was weak enough to let it happen to her once before, it is not out of the realm of possibilities that it will happen again. Very well, said Hiashi as he stood up. I will deal with this myself. Please hurry, said the elder as Hiashi walked towards the door. You must get to her before the Hokage signs the document if he hasn't done so already. If he does, we can't touch her. Hiashi found Hinata with ease. After all, he is ranked as a jonin. She was being led down the street by Naruto as they made their way to the Hokage tower. Hiashi calmly walked towards them and decided to handle this in a way that wouldn't call the attention of the Hokage. Meaning, he would have to be nice. Hinata, said Hiashi once they were close enough. Hinata got loose from Naruto's grip and hid behind him. This disgusted Hiashi, but he did not show it. I came to apologize. I have called back the document and would like you to return back to the compound. Hinata couldn't believe her ears. Her father was saying he was sorry. That he wanted her to be his daughter again. It was too good to be true for her. Hi Tausen, she said as she started to move out from behind Naruto. However, Naruto didn't believe a word. Instinct had kicked in as well as experience. The way he had said all that was not the way he had heard other people talk to their kids. Also, he had been beaten up by people who claimed they wanted to take him in before. Then there was the fact that he was getting a bad feeling from Hiashi. It was the feeling that you get when you know something bad was about to happen. And after the way he found Hinata, there was no way he would let her go back with this guy. So, Naruto moved so Hinata was in back of him again. Then Naruto-san, what are you doing? Asked Hinata. Move aside boy, said Hiashi. I have things I must discuss with my daughter. No way, yelled Naruto. I'm not letting you hurt her again. Naruto then turned his head to Hinata. Don't listen to him. He's up to something. But Naruto-san began Hinata before she was cut off by Hiashi. I will give you one chance brat, he said coldly. Either move or I would use force. He got his answer when Naruto stuck out his tongue at him. So Hiashi quickly grabbed the boy and threw him into a wall. Naruto hit it hard and bounced off of it. The people who had stopped to watch this cheered. Then Naruto-san, cried Hinata as she attempted to move towards the boy. But Hiashi quickly grabbed her arm and held on tightly. So tightly in fact that it hurt her. Now come along, said Hiashi as they started to move in the direction of the Hyuga complex. Then, all of a sudden, they were surrounded by Anbu. In front of Hiashi and a struggling Hinata was a woman behind a cat mask. She had purple hair and tan skin. Hyuga Hiashi, she said, the Hokage would like to have a word with you, Hinata-san and Uzumaki-san. Hiashi gritted his teeth and nodded as they were led to the old Hokage's office. He was sitting behind his desk with a single document in front of him. The Anbu laid Naruto on a couch in the room and they all vanished except for the woman. Do you know what this is Hiashi-sama? Asked the Hokage as he held up a document. By the tone of his voice, he was not in a good mood. "This is the document that you sent earlier today. So, what do you want with Hinata?" "I was just tying up some loose ends," said Hiashi without any remorse. "By that you mean the birdcage seal," said Sarutobi. "Well, I'm afraid that I will not allow that. She is no longer in your clan, and while I can't stop you from doing that to your family members, I will not allow you to do that to a non-clan member." "Then I demand that she never leave the village," said Hiashi. "You are not in any position to be demanding anything," said Sarutobi. "Assault on 2 children in the middle of the day. You're lucky that I don't have you arrested right now. I will take this up with the council and maybe the daimyo. Believe me, Hiashi, I will make sure that you are punished for this." "You go, Ajusan," said Naruto weakly as he was waking up. Hiashi turned to glare at the boy as he sat straight up. He hated the boy. He blamed the demon brat for this. If it weren't for the Anbu and the Hokage in the room, he would have killed him right then and there. "Very well," said Hiashi as he turned his attention back to the aged Hokage. "But do know that this isn't the end. Sooner or later we will place that seal on her head and then you can send her on suicide missions for all I care." He then turned to Hinata, who was about ready to cry again, and sneered. Then, he walked out the door and slammed it behind him. Sarutobi, seeing the poor girl in the state she was in, walked over to her, knelt down, and hugged her as she let it all out. "Why, sob, doesn't my Towson, sob, love me?" she cried. All anyone could do was watch. "I do not know," said Sarutobi softly. "I'm sorry." "Okage-sama," said the Anbu suddenly. "If you would allow it, I would like it if Hinata lived with me. My fighting style is similar to that of the Hyuga clan, and I'm positive that I would make a better role model than that ass. Come on, what do you say?" She ended this with a thumbs up good guy pose. "Very well, Yoruichi." Hiashi opened his eyes and saw that he was no longer in his room. From the looks and smell of it, he was in some kind of abandoned factory or sewer. There were pipes coming out of the ground and out of the walls. The floor was concrete and the walls had steel plates on them. He then realized that he was in some kind of chair. His hands and legs were bound to it by chakra-enhanced steel chains. His head was locked in place by a steel clamp that kept him from moving it. In fact, the only thing he could move was his mouth. Then he saw something move towards him. It was 2 power drills moving towards him at eye level. Literally. Then a voice came on the speakers behind him. "Hello, Hyuga Hiashi. I want to play a game. Your whole life you have hurt others with your words. Your harshness has caused people to lose faith in themselves, and because of that they have died on missions or have hurt their team's performances. Others have simply given up hope for themselves, like your former daughter Hinata. Now, you must use your words to save yourself. In front of you are power drills that are set on a timer. When it reaches 0 they will thrust forward and stop just before they penetrate your skull. The only thing that they will take is what your clan prides itself for, your eyes. The only way to stop this is to say something nice about Hinata. But it won't be that easy. Those chains that are binding you will let me know if you are lying. If they tell me that you are, one of the drills will shoot forward automatically. You have 60 seconds. Let the game begin." With that, the drills came to life. "Why should I believe this is real?" screamed Hiashi. "You want me to say something truthful? Fine then. Hinata is and always will be useless trash." Like promised, one of the drills shot forward and impaled his left eye. The head of the Hyuga clan screamed in pain. "TSK, TSK," said the voice. "One more try. Oh, by the way, you have 30 seconds left." Hiashi moaned and cried as his precious seconds passed him by. His brain racked itself to find something nice to say about Hinata. Sadly, only one thing came to mind. "Ah, she's a good dresser," he said. "Sorry Hiashi," said the voice as the other drill headed for his right eye. "Not good enough." Hiashi screamed as his whole world went black. Then he woke up. "No more Saw movie marathons before bed," said a panting Hiashi aloud. Shortly after Hinata moved in with Yoruichi, Naruto decided to go and visit her to make sure that everything was alright. Naruto looked up her address and found out she lived in a penthouse apartment on the other side of the village. "Why am I going with you again?" whined Anko, and she walked behind Naruto. "I should be doing some target practice right now. Or getting back at that team for stealing my dango." "I want you to meet Hinata so you can make another friend," said Naruto with a grin. "Why do I need another friend?" she asked. "Because I'm your only friend," deadpanned Naruto. Anko just sheepishly looked away. About 30 minutes later the two of them stepped into a lobby that reminded them of the one from the first Matrix movie. I could just describe it, but I'm lazy. They, of course, got the same treatment here as they did everywhere else. "What are you two doing here?" demanded a security guard as he walked over to them. "We're here to see Yoruichi-san and Hinata," said Naruto. "You're right," huffed the guard. "Now get out of here before I call some chunins." "Just let us see her," demanded Anko. "What's the harm in that?" The guard paused and considered this. If they were lying he could throw them out or simply beat them himself. The worst that could come from this was a complaint from Yuruchi-san or a complaint about blood on the floor. However, if they were telling the truth and he kept them from seeing her, the purple-haired woman would make sure he was in a buttload of pain and have no job. Hell might even get the Hokage involved. Fine, he said. But if she has never seen you before you will get it. Do I make myself clear? The two just nod. Later. Who is it? Came a voice from behind the door after the guard knocked on it. It was defiantly Yuruchi's. Ma'am, there are two kids here who are claiming to know you, said the guard. Is one of them a blonde spiky-haired boy with whisker marks on his face? She asked. Yes, said the guard with a downhearted expression on his face. There went his chance to beat some kids. The door opened and Yuruchi stepped out. Naked. The guard got a major nosebleed and fainted. Anko looked a little embarrassed and Naruto just poked the guard while Hinata stepped into the hallway, pressing her fingers together the whole time. Yuruchi-san, please stop doing that, said Hinata. Who else? Yuruchi, in turn, vanished and reappeared behind Hinata. She then used her fingers to hook Hinata's mouth and stretch it. I thought I asked you to call me Yuruchi-nichan, she said. Hi, Hinata managed to say. Yuruchi then let her go and patted her on the head. Hey, why did this guy pass out? Asked Naruto. Because I used the strongest weapon in the shinobi, no, the entire world on him, answered Yuruchi as she brought her hand to her hips. Sex. As she said that she made the V for victory sign. This was a lesson that Anko and Naruto took to heart and would use in the future. Someday. 1 year later. Remember to be on your best behavior, said Sarutobi to his companion. We are meeting the leader of the shinobi of this village, and I don't want anything to happen that would wreck our fragile relationship with this village. Is that understood? Hi Jason, said Naruto. It was, for once, a sunny day in Omegakure, gasp. Sarutobi had decided to take Naruto along with him as a birthday present as it was early in October. They were going to the village to pick up a stolen item and to witness the execution of the man who stole it. The man in question, Rakusho Aoi, had joined up with a rebellious faction in AIM that was being led by a mysterious figure. Hanzo, the leader of the AIM Nins, had caught him and decided to return the item. However, Aoi would get a public exaction to serve as an example to others. Hanzo met them at the gate surrounded by his own person bodyguards. He wore a grey bodysuit and had a cape on. His large breathing device covered most of his face and made his black eyes seem more menacing. Good day to you Hokage-sama, said Hanzo when he saw the old man in red cage robes. His eyes then fell on a small boy of about 7 wearing an oversized shirt with blue shorts. In his left hand was a string that was tied to a balloon. And who is this? This is Uzumaki Naruto, said Sarutobi as he patted the small blonde's head. He is a student at my village's shinobi academy. I thought it would be very educational for him to see a different village. I see, said Hanzo slowly as he looked the boy over. His appearance looked familiar to another shinobi he had seen before. However, his clan name made him think of another group that he had met in Yuzu no Kuni. But then again, it could be just a coincidence, so he let those thoughts go. I hope you enjoy your stay Uzumaki-san. I hope so too Ajayi-san, replied Naruto to Hanzo. A gasp came from everyone nearby. Did the young blonde know who he was talking to? That man was Sanshao no Hanzo. He was the man who defeated the Sannin and then gave them their name. He was one of the most powerful shinobi on the planet. Imagine everyone's surprise when Hanzo laughed. That's cute kid, chuckled Hanzo. I'm very sorry about this, said Sarutobi quickly. Don't worry about it, said Hanzo as he waved it off. I have children of my own and soon I'll be a grandfather, so I'll have to get used to it sooner or later. Besides, he's just a child. What kind of person would I be if I got angry at a child for being a child? Sarutobi was about to respond when a powerful wind blew and Naruto accidentally let go of his balloon. The balloon slowly rose into the sky as it was a bit old. Sarutobi was about to grab it for the boy when he noticed the look on Hanzo's face. He followed the other man's gaze which fell on Naruto who was doing some hand signs. When the boy finished the wind seemed to rotate around him and he slowly rose off the ground. Kicking his legs in the air as he flew upwards, Naruto was able to get his balloon that was now a foot above Sarutobi, Hanzo, and everyone else's heads. However, as soon as he grabbed it, he fell. Luckily, Naruto was caught by Sarutobi. Naruto, are you alright? Asked the old Kage as he set the boy down and began to check for injuries. I'm fine Ajayi-san, said Naruto. That was wind chakra, thought Hanzo. By the looks of it, he hasn't completely mastered it. If I had to guess, he has at least completed a third of the second stage. Hanzo then watched with interest as the Hokage questioned the boy. At first, Naruto was a bit reluctant to tell them about his late nights and all the training he had been doing. But, after being threatened with no ramen for the rest of the trip, Naruto caved. After hearing about his training and how far along he was, Hanzo couldn't help but be amazed. His chakra stores must be very large for his age. The next generation of shinobi will be amazing. Naruto, you should be more careful, scolded the Hokage. What you did was very reckless. You could have been. I hate to interrupted Hanzo, but you are to meet the council of Omegakure. They would like to talk about the execution and several other things. Very well, said Sarutobi. He was about to ask to be led the way when Hanzo held up his hand. Is there something else you need to say? Indeed, said Hanzo as he lowered his hand. The meeting will be long and not doubt dull. Since this is between you and the council, I happen to be free. Allow me to show Uzumaki-san around. In fact, the village genins are having a small tournament that I think the boy would like to see. Taken an interest in him? Asked Sarutobi with a raised eyebrow. Don't worry, I'm not planning on stealing him or trying to get him to betray his village, said Hanzo. I just think that he would learn more about this village with me than he would with you in that council. That was why you brought him here, right? That is correct, said the Hokage. He then let out a sigh. Very well. Good, said Hanzo. Shortly after they parted, Naruto began his tour through Omegakure. Most of the buildings seemed to have pipes coming out of them, which was interesting. After walking for a while, he learned that the village was set up by levels. The upper or higher levels of the buildings held the business and factories. The middle levels had stores and restaurants. The lower levels were mostly residential. While seeing this, Naruto noticed that most of the people in the village were wearing breathing devices that varied in size. Hanzo explained that due to the amount of rain and its consistency, nearly 24/7, that many people have a hard time breathing. In fact, some people have had their lungs filled with water after breathing too hard. The breathing devices were made to prevent this, as well as help the shinobi breath underwater. The next thing that Naruto asked was why Hanzo didn't have to go to the meeting. Wasn't he the leader of the village? Hanzo replied that he wasn't in charge of anything other than the shinobi. Everything else, from trash collection to making treaties, was decided by the council. Hanzo laughed as he told the boy that he was glad because it saved him from a lot of paperwork. Also, it allowed him to go on mission more often than the cages. But aren't you respected like a Hokage? Asked Naruto as they reached the training grounds. Well, first off, I'm not a Kage, said Hanzo. There are only 5 people who are given that title, and they each belong to one of the 5 major countries. I am Kage level, but I don't get to be called a Kage. But that doesn't mean I'm not respected. Naruto blinked in confusion. An officer at title does not equal respect. Well, you can get it if you have them, I guess. I, however, do not believe that in that. I respect one's skill. For example, I once fought against 3 shinobi from your village. During that fight, I saw their skill and they earned my respect. So much so that I spared their lives on the condition that they call themselves the Sannin. So you respect people if they are strong? Asked Naruto. Not all, said Hanzo. There is also the way the person gains their strength. Take Sharingan no Kakashi for example. He is said to have copied at least 1,000 different jutsus. However, the source of his power comes from an eye that he wasn't born with. He steals other people's jutsus and claims them as his own. Tell me, Uzumaki-san, would you be angry if someone spied on you and took something that you worked very long and hard on? Like that jutsu you did when we first met? Of course, said Naruto. Hanzo nodded. The true shinobi wins his battles with his own abilities and his own skills. There's also a difference between a good shinobi and a great one. A good shinobi learns his jutsus while a great one makes his own. Hanzo then looked down at Naruto. And it seems you have the makings to be a great one. A little while later they arrived at the training field where the Genin tournament was being held. In AIM, it was common for the Jonin senseis to brag about their team skills and their abilities as instructors. So, once every couple of mouths, they put their pride and money where their mouths were. Naruto watched in fascination as the AIM nins used Jutsu and a couple basic Suiton moves. Some of the moves that he saw were Kasumi-Jiksha no Jutsu and Oboro Bunshin no Jutsu. Good move, son, shouted a man on the other side of the field. Naruto looked over and saw what looked like parents of some of the genin who had come to watch. That and play some bets of their own. Seeing this, Naruto couldn't help but feel a little sad and jealous, which Hanzo noticed. I think I now know why your Hokage brought you here, said Hanzo softly. You don't have a real family, do you? Naruto just shook his head. I see. Well, it is unfortunate, you should not use it as an excuse. I have seen many shinobi from this village grow up to be powerful without a family. Yet, I have seen others who make the excuse that they are weak because they have no family to learn from. Also remember that not having a family gives you an element of surprise. Naruto looked up and stared at the elder shinobi. There are many people who judge others based on their families. Some will say that you are only as skilled as your family. When they look at you they will think that since you have no family you will have no skill. Well, that is rubbish and a Baka's belief. The harder you work, the stronger you become. Almost any problem can be overcome with hard work. Otherwise, you're just giving up and taking the coward's way out. I think I understand, said Naruto as he turned his gaze back on the parents. But still, it would be nice to have someone to cook me dinner and stuff. Yes, well, that's life, said Hanzo, not sugarcoating a thing. The way I see it, you can either whine about it or do something about it. If you lack a real family, make one. All Naruto could do was give a light nod. When the tournament was over, Hanzo realized that it was getting late and that they should be getting back. However, a thought entered his mind. The kid had potential and he was a person who liked to reward people with potential. Usually he just let them live or something like that, but that wouldn't work in this case. No, he had to do something much more. Then, in his mind, it was decided. Hanzo told his guards to take 5 for a moment so he could be alone with Naruto for a moment. This, of course, surprised them since he was never told them he wanted to be alone with someone. But they just shrugged their shoulders and walked away. It was just a kid with him after all. Naruto, I'm going to give you something special, said Hanzo. He then pulled out a scroll and then unsealed a much larger scroll and set it down while opening it up. This is a summoning contract. Once you sign your name in it, you will be able to summon whatever creatures that the contract is with and they will fight with you. I would like you to sign the salamander contract. Really? Cried an excited Naruto. Then he became confused. Why me? Let's just say that I think it will help, said Hanzo. Also, you have skills that have yet to be tapped into. Until you do, the Salamander clan will be able to help you out. They might even train you and show you some jutsus that you can use with them. Now, if you want to sign it you must sign it in blood. Naruto went up to the scroll and did just that. It was a little sloppy compared to the rest, but that didn't matter. When that was over, Hanzo showed Naruto the signs and then told him about the blood that was needed to perform this jutsu. The next day, Sarutobi and Naruto were at the gate saying their goodbyes. Hanzo said goodbye to Naruto and then handed an object to Sarutobi. So what will happen to the Raijin? Asked Hanzo offhandedly. It will be placed back into the vault of my office, said Sarutobi. There will be some new security features added to ensure that this won't happen again. A pity, said Hanzo. A weapon should be used in the battlefield and not some safe. It would be a shame if it was never used again. Yes, agreed the Hokage. However, if I did give it to one of the clans, the others would fight over it and say that I favored one clan more than the others. Then why not give it to a smaller clan or someone who doesn't have one, said Hanzo as he glanced at Naruto for a moment. Then they couldn't do a thing about. Explain, said the Hokage. I know how arrogant some of the major clans in your village are, said Hanzo. If you gave the Raijin to someone without a clan or is trying to build it up, you can say that you have the blade to them to help them along. Also, if any of the other clans fight or steal it, well it will be obvious, and legal actions will have to take place regardless of their status. And, if they do steal it, it would be like admitting that they consider it a threat, even if it is held by a nobody. I think I get it, said the Hokage as he looked at the Raijin. Well, we better get going. With that, Sarutobi and Naruto turned to leave. Of course Naruto waved for a while. Just before they were out of sight, Hanzo saw Sarutobi giving something to Naruto. The next generation will be very interesting indeed, said Hanzo. It was early in the morning when the two figures appeared on top of the Hokage monument. One of them was a girl no older than 12. She had short purple hair that was tied up in the back, so it looked like it was standing up. She wore a tan trench coat, a black shirt, a yellow skirt, leg guards, and ninja sandals. Her partner had spiky yellow hair that went down to his shoulder, blue eyes, and whisker marks on his face. He had on a white sleeveless shirt, baggy white pants, and ninja sandals. Around his waist was a blue sash that had a pouch tied onto it near his rear. He had wanted to buy something with orange, but Hinata, Anko, and Yuruchi smacked some sense into him. Well, Anko and Yuruchi smacked him, and Hinata, after applying some healing salve to his bruises, explained why he shouldn't. On the ground were several spray cans. This is such a good idea, said Anko as she smiled like a maniac. Too bad that Hinata didn't want to join in on the fun. Come on Anko-chan, said Naruto as he picked up a can. You know Hinata-chan doesn't like this kind of stuff. Anko just huffed at that. She could have kept guard or something like that, said Anko as she looked away. Don't worry about it, said Naruto as he picked up another can and tossed it to her. We just have to do this quickly or else we'll get chased again. Remember last time we got caught? Anko shuddered. It was the worst punishment they had ever had. Detention she could handle. Cleaning up the mess was not so bad. Visiting the people she accidentally injured was iffy at best. But nothing compared to listen to the Hokage drone on for hours about how irresponsible they were and stuff like that. Never again, she said. Naruto nodded at her and then smiled. Now let's show these people what art is, he said. Sadly for them, it took longer than expected. This resulted in Naruto. Anko. Get back here, shouted an angry Chunin as he chased the two across town. No way, yelled Naruto without looking back. Like hell we will. yelled Anko. The villagers who saw this stared only for a moment before they carried on with their daily activities. Things like this were very common since the two hell spawns became friends. Now it was like a ritual that would take place at different times. They would cause trouble, get caught and run for it, and then Iruka would catch them. It is amazing what you can get used to over time. Naruto and Anko were able to outrun their pursuers and hide from them effectively. After hiding behind a cloak that looked like a fence, the two Chunin that were tailing them jumped right past. As soon as the coast seemed clear, they came out from under the cloak and began to laugh at them. It was truly funny seeing that they were Chunins who were maybe 10 to 15 years older than them and had been outwitted by two 12-year-olds who weren't even genins. Sadly, Iruka appeared behind them and their laughter stopped. Naruto. Anko. What are you two doing cutting class? Naruto turned around to see Iruka whose eye was twitching. They both just chuckled nervously before they were tied up and dragged back to the academy. Tomorrow is the graduation exam and you do this. If you have so much free time you should be studying so you don't fail it again. Yelled Iruka at Naruto once they were back in the classroom. The kids laughed at this. Yeah, I was just trying to have a little fun, commented the blonde. Iruka then turned to Anko. The same applies to you young lady, he said as he pointed to her. Do you really think that doing things like this is such a good idea before the day of the final exam? Well, it seemed like a good idea at the time, said Anko with a weak smile. And now? Asked Naruto as he knew what she would say next. It was a great idea, she said with a full-blown grin. Iruka just smacked his face. For that, we are going to have a pop quiz on the henge. Everyone, to the front of the class. Everyone began to complain, but did as they were told. One by one, each of the students began to transform into Iruka. Of course, all the girls were all over Sasuke when he went up. They said he was cool and amazing and all that stuff, and, naturally, he ignored them. When it was Naruto's turn he did his transformation, just not into Iruka. Instead, he turned into a naked girl with pigtails. In surprise and perversion, Iruka fell backwards as a stream of blood gushed out of his nose. How do you like that sensei, laughed Naruto. I call it the Warrick no Jutsu. Not stupid made-up jutsu, shouted Iruka as he got back up. This is your last chance so don't screw around. Later that day, Iruka was watching Naruto and Anko as they cleaned up their mess. You can't leave until this is all cleaned up, reminded Iruka. Whatever, it's not like I have anyone waiting for me back home, responded Naruto as he continued to brush off the paint. Same here, said Anko as she did the same. Despite how close the two of them were, they never did move in with each other. Somehow they both knew that putting two of the most hated children in the same place at night was asking for a mob to show up and burn down the place while they slept. Then there was their already close relationship. Even though they were close, they had never been on a date. Mainly because Naruto was equally close to Hinata. But due to their closeness, rumors had spread that involved inappropriate activates for people their age. The source of these rumors, Sakura Haruno, was repaid for these calumnies by Anko with a trip to the hospital. Sadly, that did not stop the other students from whispering. Iruka winced when he heard that. Over the years those two had grown on him. He even remembered when he began to doubt that they were all that bad. It happened shortly after Hinata was kicked out of her clan. Niji, her former cousin, was waiting for her after school. He somehow cornered her against the wall and began to beat the living hell out of the poor girl. Before Iruka could stop it, both Naruto and Anko had stepped in. Naruto ran up to the older boy and tackled him onto the ground. Anko went to make sure Hinata was alright before helping Naruto remove some of Elder Hyuga's teeth. After Iruka stepped in and separated them, he asked the two why they helped Hinata. Naruto simply said that Hinata was their friend and Anko nodded while glaring at Niji. Niji was suspended for a week for that and Iruka got an earful from the Hyuga clan. They thought that the punishment was too harsh since he only gave her a black eye and broke her arm. That day had also had an effect of Naruto. Whenever he saw Niji fighting, he could feel the rage that the Hyuga genius felt. It was the same with Sasuke. They both used their anger as fuel, and yet, even though they won almost all of the time, they never seemed happy. So Naruto decided never to go into a fight holding a grudge or anything like that. He would fight for the pure enjoyment of fighting and to protect others like he did with Hinata. That way win or lose, he would walk away with a grin. Iruka sighed and decided to pull out his trump card. Hey Naruto, when you get down I'll treat you to a bowl of ramen. And Anko, I'm sure they will have some dango for you. Naruto and Anko turned to look at their sensei with a look of hope and love. With the promise of their favorite foods they got to work faster than ever. Later, while Naruto was downing his third bowl of ramen and Anko was enjoying her dango, Iruka decided to ask an important question. Naruto, why did you fail last year's exam? He asked. Naruto turned his head and gave the elder nin a questioning look. I know you have the Bunshin Jutsu down pat, but last you messed up on purpose. Ah, said Naruto as he looked down at his bowl. The truth was he could have passed it all 3 times thanks to the training he got from the old man. However, the first time he got sidetracked while working on a jutsu and spent the entire night working on it. So when it came time to make a clone he didn't have enough chakra. The second time was because he had summoned the boss salamander and went through the trials. He was so tired the next morning that he couldn't concentrate, even with QP healing him. He then looked back over at Iruka. I didn't want to take a chance that would get me on the same team as Niji team. Iruka blinked and Naruto continued. That bastard's mad at Hiashi for forgetting to put the seal on Hinata, so he takes out his frustrations on her. There is no way in hell that we could ever work as a team. Nothing's worth that, even a year's supply of ramen. I see, said Iruka. Hey sensei. What is it, Naruto? Can I try on you? Hit I8. Sorry, but you'll have to wait for tomorrow after you pass the exam. Iruka gave Naruto a knowing smile and then sent him on his way with Anko. The next day was the big day. Naruto had arrived early to make sure he was there. When he got into the room he spotted Hinata. She was wearing a tight black outfit like what Yuruchi wore sometimes. However, lately she had been wearing a heavy tan jacket over it. When he had asked why, she blushed and said there was no reason. Since she had been kicked out of the Hyuga clan, people had a change in attitude with her. When she first came as Hyuga Hinata, people were polite and nice to her. Some of the parents told their children to suck up to her so that when she became clan head that she would remember them. It was always good to have the Hyuga clan on your side. Then, when she was kicked out, a lot of people asked if there was anything they could do for her. But that soon changed. Once word got out that she was kicked out for her weakness, slipped out by Niji to the children and Hiashi to the parents, people looked at her like she was a nuisance. Parents stopped telling their children to be nice to her. In the academy, some of the more stuck-up girls would laugh at her behind her back. Pity for them that changed. Over the years, she rose to the spot of number in Ekunoichi of their year, with Anko nipping at her heels. She was just too fast that no one could touch her. Little did they know, she was holding back. Hey Hinata-chan, said Naruto as he walked over to sit next to her. Good morning Naruto-kun, said Hinata with a blush. The years of being and training with Yuruchi had gotten rid of her stuttering and had given her confidence in herself. She had also devolved a crush on the blonde shortly after he saved her that day on the street. It was only when she was around him that she was a bit shy. So are you ready for the test this time? Don't worry about me, said Naruto as he gave her his foxy grin that caused her to become a tomato. I'll be fine. That was when Iruka and Mizuki entered the room. Okay, today is the genin exam, said Iruka. When I call your name, please come into the back room. Let's start with Mitarashi Anko. When he said that a black ball-shaped object came through the window and then became a banner that said, Mitarashi Anko future genin. Wow, she pulled it off this time, said Naruto with a laugh. I was wondering where she was, said Hinata with a deadpan expression on her face. Iruka did his demon head jutsu to yell at Anko before pulling her into the back room. When she emerged she was wearing a hit I8. One by one, Iruka called out names to meet him in the next room to be tested by him and his assistant Mizuki. Soon his name was called. He soon found himself facing his sensei. Okay Naruto, said Iruka, all you need to do is make a clone and you pass. Do your best. Right, Bushin, no jutsu. A large puff of smoke appeared and filled the room. It was so thick that no one saw Mizuki placing a jinjutsu on Naruto's clone that made it look half dead. You fail, shouted Iruka shortly after the smoke cleared. Hold on, said Mizuki as he tried his best to sound sincere. He has the concept down and was able to make a clone. I'm sure we could pass him. Naruto looked up at this. His hopes were high. Maybe he would pass after all. Sadly, those thoughts vanished with Iruka's next words. No, we can't pass him. The other students were able to make at least 3 clones and they were able to walk around. Naruto's clone is useless. I'm sorry, but it wouldn't be fair to the rest of the class. After that, Naruto sat on a swing watching the parents of the other students pick up their children as he sat on a swing. He heard people saw that they were glad he didn't become a shinobi. Anko couldn't be there for him because she was in detention for that stunt earlier and Hinata had been pulled away by Yuruchi for a moment to give her a surprise. Personally, he didn't mind, he wanted to be alone for a while. He had failed and they had passed. If he stayed around them it would just be a reminder that they were now genin and he was still a student. Soon Mizuki came over to Naruto and asked if he wanted to talk. Naruto agreed and followed Mizuki to the top of the Hokage monument. Don't be too hard on Iruka, said Mizuki. He just wants to see you do your best. He really cares about up. Naruto said nothing, he just looked down at the ground until Mizuki spoke again. There is another way to pass, but it's a secret. What is it? Asked Naruto. All you have to do is sneak into the Hokage's office, steal the forbidden scroll, and learn one jutsu from it before someone finds you, he explained. Later that night, Naruto snuck into the Hokage's office and grabbed the scroll. While he was making his escape, the Hokage entered the office and saw him. Thinking quickly, Naruto used his Warrick no Jutsu on the old man, knocking him out cold. After that, Naruto quickly made his way to the place where Mizuki had told him to go to. As soon as he got there, he opened the scroll. "Okay, time to learn a jutsu," he said aloud. The first jutsu was Cage Bunshin. It was about an hour later when Iruka showed up. Naruto looked like he was exhausted. "Hey Iruka-sensei, looks like you found me," said Naruto with a laugh. "Naruto, what are you doing here?" "I did it, Iruka-sensei," cried Naruto as he ignored the question. "Not only did I steal the scroll, I also learned 2 new jutsu from it. It looks like I passed the secret test." "What secret test?" asked the dumbfounded teacher. "The one Mizuki-sensei told me about. He said all I had to do was steal the forbidden scroll and learn 1 jutsu, and I could become a genin." "Naruto," began Iruka, but stopped when he sensed Mizuki appear on a tree branch above them. "I see you found him first," said Mizuki with a smug look on his face. "What's going on, sensei?" asked Naruto. "Naruto, Mizuki lied to you," said Iruka as he pulled out a kunai. "He used you to steal the forbidden scroll for himself." "Naruto," said Mizuki with an evil look in his eyes, "have you ever wondered why you are hated? Would you like me to tell you?" "Why?" asked Naruto. "Don't," shouted Iruka. "It's because you are the QB no Kitsune," said Mizuki with a look of glee on his face. "What? That's impossible," yelled Naruto. "Think about," said Mizuki. "Why do you think everyone hates you? Your birthday is October 10th, the same day as the day the QB attacked. And those whisker marks. Think about the names all the villagers call you. Face it, you are the demon fox. Even Iruka hates you because you killed his parents." Naruto fell to his knees. This was too much for him to take in. But it was beginning to make sense. Seeing Naruto in this state, Mizuki flung one of his giant shuriken at Naruto. However, it impacted with Iruka's back. When Naruto looked up, he saw Iruka as he began to cry. "Iruka-sensei, why?" asked the demon vessel. "Naruto, I'm so sorry. I was the same as you. I know what it feels to be all alone. When my parents died, I became the class clown so people would notice me and my grades lacked. I'm so sorry I never helped you when you really needed it." With that, Iruka fell down. In pure panic, Naruto grabbed a scroll and ran away. Mizuki soon began to chase him, and shortly after that so did Iruka. Iruka saw Naruto jumping from tree to tree with the scroll on his back. "Naruto," he called out. "Give me the scroll and let's go see the Hokage." Then, all of a sudden, Naruto turned and tackled him. Iruka fell down onto the ground and turned into Mizuki. Naruto jumped down onto the ground and laid it back against a tree. "How did you know I wasn't Iruka?" asked Mizuki. Then Naruto turned into the scared Chunin. "Because I'm Iruka. I don't see why you're not helping me kill that monster. He killed your parents. You saw the way he looked. That was the look of a monster with no remorse for the lives he has taken. Help me kill him and together we can take the scroll and become powerful." "You're right," said Iruka. "Monsters do kill without remorse and they do terrible things." In his hiding place, Naruto began to sink into despair. Iruka thought of him as a monster as well. However, he was amazed at what he said next. But that's not what Naruto is. He's nothing like the demon fox. He is a kind and hard-working boy that everyone ignores. He is one of the finest students I have ever taught and will become a great shinobi one day. "You are a fool, Iruka. Now die," said Mizuki as he reached to his back to pull out his other shuriken. That's when Naruto's foot impacted his face. Mizuki was thrown back several feet but did not fall down. "Thanks for saving me the trouble of looking for you." Naruto ignored him, rushed over to his sensei. "I'm sorry, sensei," he said. "That's okay, Naruto." "How nice," said Mizuki. "Now I can kill you both at the same time." As soon as he said that, a powerful wind erupted from Naruto that halted his movements. Branches broke and animals took shelter from its force. Slowly Naruto turned around to stare at the traitor. "Normally, I don't go into a fight with a grudger seeking blood. But it's too late for that. I won't let you hurt Iruka-sensei," he said. Iruka was surprised in how Naruto said it. It was calm, as if he knew there was no way he would lose. He then made the ram sign that we all know. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. And with that the field was full of Narutos. "Is that all you got?" said Mizuki. While he was acting tough, he truly was starting to sweat. This wasn't good at all. Deciding that his best course of action was to attack first and get them by surprise. He threw his shuriken and destroyed several clones. He got creeped out when Naruto just laughed. "You know, sensei," he said. "I learned one other jutsu. Mizuki then heard a noise behind him and on instinct threw a kunai at the Naruto that was attacking from behind. However, when it hit the clone, it did not go puff. It went boom and Mizuki was thrown by the force. I also learned Bunshin Daibakuha. When Mizuki landed, all of the remaining clones moved to keep him in the perimeter. Naruto then moved over to him quickly and proceeded in punching the man in the gut repeatedly until he could no longer hear the man's bones breaking. Needless to say, when it was done, Iruka was impressed that his student had learned 2 powerful jutsu. "Hey Naruto, close your eyes," said Iruka. Naruto complied, and when he opened them, he noticed the Iruka's hit I-8 was no longer on Iruka's head. It was on his. Naruto began to jump for joy, and his happiness was infectious. In his office, the Hokage smiled. He had watched the whole thing through his crystal ball and understood why Naruto did what he did. How could he blame the boy for listening and believing what his sensei told him? But no, he had to make the teams. While he wanted Naruto to be happy, he couldn't put him with both Hinata and Anko. That would cause more rumors, and they would doubtlessly spread like wildfire. Also, he believed that Hinata would be better suited on the recon team led by Kurenai. With her speed and bloodline, she would be perfect. Not to mention that the new Jonin practically demanded her to be on her team. He had thought to put Anko in Team 4, but decided that Sakura should be put in that team instead. Then an idea came to mind when he saw the Team 7 slot. The council had made a powerful case that Sasuke be taught by Kakashi. In principle, Sarutobi agreed that that was the best choice. Kakashi was the only person in the village who could teach the boy. Sadly, Kakashi had his flaws. The old Hokage had a long-standing belief that the one-eyed Jonin had been failing his previous teams on purpose so that he could be Sasuke's sensei. Also, he was very lazy and would most likely ignore his other 2 students. When he voiced this to the council, they had insisted that the Uchiha was more important. So Sarutobi was having a hard time deciding who to put in that team. He thought of Sakura first because she didn't seem to care about her training anyways, but she was now out of the picture. He needed 2 people who were already highly skilled above their age group who would need a sensei that could be there when they were over their heads. And there were only 2 that he knew of. On Monday morning, Naruto sat with the others as Iruka went over the list of teams. He heard Sakura whine when she wasn't placed on Sasuke's team. Then Iruka got to Team 7. Team 7 will be Uzumaki Naruto, Mitarashi Anko, and Uchiha Sasuke. Your sensei will be Kakashi Haddock. Team 8 will be Inuzuka Kiba, Aburam Shino, and Hinata. Your sensei will be Yuhi Kurenai. Team 10 will be Yamanaka Ino, Nara Shikamaru, and Akamichi Choji. Your sensei will be Sarutobi Asuma. Hey, wait a minute, screeched Sakura. How come Naruto gets to be on the same team as Sasuke-kun when he failed the exam? There was a group of nods with this statement. Naruto took a makeup test that was 10 times harder and passed, said Iruka as he set his clipboard down. Also, these teams were selected by the Hokage himself. If you have a problem with it, you can take it up with him. Now, you may go to lunch now, and when you are done, please wait here for your new senseis to arrive. I wish you all the best of luck. Why, Kami? Cried Naruto as he ate lunch with Anko and Hinata. Do you hate me that much? Why do I have to be stuck with Sasuke? Hey Naruto-kun, said Anko as she put down her tea and then threw her last dango stick at a tree to create the leaf symbol. Are you done whining about this? It's starting to get on my nerves. Well, said Naruto as he brought a hand to his chin. I was going to start listing the reasons why this is a bad idea. Then I had planned on going over all the injustices that we have gone through in the entirety of our lives. Finally, I would have finished it all by saying that we should be on the same team. I know how you feel, said Hinata as she put down her bento box. I thought that the Hokage would put us all on the same team since we work so well together. I know, Hinata-chan, said Naruto as he slapped his knees. That's what I've been trying to get at. We work perfectly together. Hinata-chan finds them, I beat them up, and then Anko-chan ties them up and gets any information she can from them. You know me too well, said Anko with a blush. But, I guess I can see why we are on these teams. Like Shikamaru, Choji, and Ino are on the same team because their fathers were on the same team and worked well together. I guess he's sticking with what works, so he's doing it with everyone. I didn't know that about Shikamaru, Choji, and Ino, said an amazed Naruto. You slept through that lecture, deadpanned Anko. Over on a different part of the academy grounds, a pink-haired girl was crying her eyes out. She had not been placed on the same team as her Sasuke-kun, not only that, but also when she had asked to eat lunch with him, he just vanished. She felt like Kami hated her. Really, it's just me. Watching her were Shikamaru, Choji, and Ino. There, said Ino as she patted Sakura's back. It'll be fine. Who knows, you might like your team. But IW wanted to be on Sasuke-kun's NIF team, wailed Sakura. It's not fair. Ino turned to the other 2 who were watching this and eating. Would you 2 help out here? She demanded. It's not like there is anything that we can do, said Choji as he continued to eat some chips. It's the Hokage who set up the teams, not us. Shikamaru sighed. Maybe you'll meet someone else, he suggested weakly. Sakura just cried harder and Ino shot him a dirty look. Troublesome. It's not fair, whined Sakura. How come Naruto Baka gets to be on the same team as Sasuke-kun? Well, maybe it was because of the makeup exam he took, suggested Choji as he tossed his empty bag away and opened a new one. Iruka-sensei said it was much harder. No way, said Ino. He couldn't even make a simple bunshin. I bet he sucked up to the Hokage or something. She paused for a moment and then smiled. Or maybe someone thought that he would make a good punching bag for Sasuke-kun. She laughed at that. Or maybe someone just wants him dead, said Sakura darkly, causing everyone to look at her. My mom's always going on about how they should just kill him, but no one can do to the Hokage. What if someone wanted him to become a shinobi so he could die on a mission? That wouldn't take too long since he is a talentless loser. Shikamaru didn't say anything to this. If he had, it would have fallen on deaf ears. He had seen and heard this kind of attitude before. It was the strongest with the adults, and with the children there was a watered-down version of it. In fact, even Iruka-sensei seemed to hate Naruto on the first day of class. What was most puzzling was that no one would ever give him a clear reason for this behavior. Ever his parents had tried to change the subject when he asked them one time. He wasn't so much of a friend of Naruto's, but no one deserved to be treated the way that he was treated, at least, not without reason. So what was the reason that caused people to hate Naruto at the level that they did? Then he dropped his line of thinking as it was becoming troublesome and leaned back to stare at the clouds. So it looks like we'll be on the same team, said Kiba to Shino. It appears so, said Shino in his usual tone after a moment. It also looks like Hinata will be on our team, continued Kiba. We could have done worse. Sakura and Ino aren't that good when it comes to the physical stuff. And she's not that bad looking. As he said this, a smile came to his face. Shino looked at him when his insects told him of his increased pheromone level. I would strongly advise you from making any attempts to become emotionally involved with her, said Shino as he adjusted his glasses. Dating within the team would cause problems and would most likely lead to our deaths. You must learn to keep your private and professional lives separated completely. Also, Hinata seems to be attached to Uzumaki. Kiba just snorted at that. I'm 10 times better than he is. Right, Akamaru. The little puppy on his head gave a small bark in agreement. I look better, I'm stronger, and I come from a well-known and respected clan. What does he have that I don't? Shino stared at Kiba for a moment and then sighed. He smells better, replied Shino. Later, all of the former academy students went back to their classroom to wait for their senseis. One by one they were called until only one team was left. That team just kept on waiting. And waiting. 2 hours later. Why are we still here? Screamed Anko as she stared at the door. She then spun around to look at Naruto and Sasuke. Sasuke was still in his seat, brooding away. Naruto was lying on his back, staring at the ceiling. Hey, does anyone know anything about our sensei? Sasuke just glared at her for a moment, then went back to his brooding. Naruto sighed and decided to answer. I have, he said. And it wasn't anything good. Apparently, our sensei is well known for stealing other people's jutsu. At that, Sasuke started to show some interest. Other than that, I got nothing. Steals jutsu, said Anko softly as she looked back at the door. Well, maybe he should steal someone else's sense of time. She then marched over to the door and pulled out some supplies from her coat. Due to her back being turned towards the two boys, they couldn't see a thing she was doing. But, based off her killer intent, it would be messy. Another 15 minutes passed before Kakashi finally decided to grace them with his presence. When he reached the room he noticed an eraser being held up by the door. Such a childish thing, he thought as he opened the door. The eraser began to fall and then went poof. In its place was a kunai that was caught by Kakashi with little problem. However, the sizzling sound he now heard from the door had him concerned. It was an exploding note. It was a double trap. The kunai was a distraction to keep my focus away from the note. With that, there was a large boom. Naruto, Sasuke, and Anko covered their eyes as their sensei vanished from sight in a cloud of smoke. Pieces of dirt and wood flew at them and bounced off their skin and clothing. When it stopped they opened their eyes to see Kakashi standing in the same spot he had been without so much as a hair out of place. That was very childish, he said. Well, my first impression of you is, he paused for effect, you're idiots and I hate you. This earned him glares from everyone and he just smiled back at them. Meet me on the roof in 5 minutes. With that he vanished in a cloud of smoke. 5 minutes later they were seated in front of their lazy, one-eyed sensei. Okay, let's start with introductions, said One Eye. Why don't you go first, sensei, suggested Anko. Fine, said Kakashi. My name is Hada Kakashi. I have likes. I dislike hobbies, I have a dream. He then tilted his head to avoid a kunai that was thrown by Anko. Okay, Blondie goes first. Alright, said Naruto. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. I like training, my friends, a good fight, and ramen. I dislike the 3 minutes I hate to wait for my ramen and people who think they are better than other because they belong to a big clan and things like that. My dream is to become Hokage. Hobbies. Pulling pranks. Kakashi nodded and then looked at Anko. My name is Mitarashi Anko. I like dango, sweet bean soup, my friends, and snakes. I dislike people who think I'll turn into my grandfather just because I'm related to him and spicy food. My dream is to become the next head of the Anbu torture and interrogation department. My hobbies are tea ceremonies and pranks that scare the living shit out of people. I still can't believe that you got into that, said Naruto. I can't believe that you like to garden, said Anko with a smirk. Naruto chose that moment to shut up. And last is Sasuke, said Kakashi as he ignored the other two. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. I have no likes or dislikes. I don't have a dream, it's more of an ambition. I want to kill a certain man. I thought so, thought Kakashi. So I got the 2 pranksters and an avenger. Well, now that that's out of the way, tomorrow we will be going on our first mission, said Kakashi. Survival training. We did those at the academy, stated an annoyed Anko. She was really beginning to dislike this guy. Her eye began to twitch once Kakashi began to laugh evilly in response. This isn't the kind of survival training that you're used to, he said. This is to see if you become genin. Hey, shouted Naruto. We already took the exam. Oh that, said Kakashi offhandedly. That was just to see if you could become genins. Out of the 27 students that graduated, only 33.3% will actually become genins. He paused for effect. Alright then, be at training ground 11 at 6 AM sharp. Don't eat breakfast or else you'll puke. He smiled then left. I think I'm going to hate that guy, said Naruto. Anko nodded as Sasuke walked away. The next morning the 3 members of Team 7 made their way to the appointed training ground. Not seeing anyone, they decided to wait. And wait. And wait. Did I mention they waited? 4 hours of waiting later, Kakashi appeared in front of his student as a puff of smoke. Immediately following that he had to dodge another kunai that was thrown by Anko. Sorry I'm late, he said with an eye smile. I got lost on the road of life. The 3 of them had different reactions. Naruto had an eye twitch. Sasuke was glaring at the man. Anko just pulled out another kunai and threw it at him. Only this time it was aimed at his groin. Kakashi vanished and then reappeared near some posts and sent down some boxed lunches. Then he pulled out an alarm clock and set it near the lunches. When he turned to look at his students he saw that Sasuke's eye was twitching, Naruto was gritting his teeth, and Anko was seeing red. What is that? Said Naruto as he pointed at the alarm clock. What we think it is. Kakashi nodded. And you're still late, growled Anko. How the hell did you ever get to be a jonin? You should know that this test ends for everyone at noon, said Kakashi as he ignored that last question. The 3 of them gasped. Well, they had been waiting for him, all of the other teams were most likely finishing up. Elsewhere. Where is Haruno? Said the Jonin sensei for Team 4. The other 2 just shrugged. Well, I won't tolerate this anymore. When you next see Sakura, tell her she is the reason you 2 were sent back to the academy. As for her, she's being bumped out of the program. Now that I have your attention I will explain the rules. Kakashi pulled out 2 bells. All you have to do is get one of these bells from me before the timer sounds. I think you're missing one, said Naruto. There's only 2. That's right Naruto, said Kakashi. There are only 2 bells. That means that at least one of you will fail. The person who doesn't get the bells will be tied to a post and is forced to watch everyone else eat. Also, that person will be sent back to the academy. As he said this, he was looking at both Naruto and Anko, as if he was trying to guess which one would fail. He then tied the 2 bells onto his side. Now, I want you to come at me with everything you have. Attack me with the intent to kill, if you don't you will never pass. Begin. As soon as he said that, the 3 young shinobi vanished from sight. Over with Iruka and the Hokage, everyone's favorite scar-faced Chunin was looking over Kakashi's history with his genin teams. However, all he saw were the names of people he had failed and then kicked out of the program. When he reached the last page he realized that Kakashi had never passed a single student in his entire career. Why did you assign Naruto under this man? Demanded Iruka. I taught a lot of people who were sent to him and I know they would have become good shinobi. And look, they were kicked out. I did it because it is the best way for Anko and Naruto to pass, said the old Hokage. I don't get it, said Iruka. How does putting them with Kakashi help them pass? I have long suspected that the council and Kakashi have come to some sort of agreement, said Sarutobi. They want him to be Sasuke's sensei regardless of the consequences. If I am right, Kakashi has been failing his students on purpose so he would be free to be Sasuke's sensei. And since it's an all-pass or all-fail test, he can't just allow Sasuke to be his only student. And if he fails them, the council will be on his ass. They want Sasuke to become a good shinobi as fast as possible so he can revive his clan faster. But if you're wrong then they still might fail, thought Iruka. I have no doubt that Naruto and Anko will work as a team, but Sasuke is a different matter. He has the skills, but he lacks the mentality. He thinks of other as dead weight that will just get in the way. You'd sooner see Orochimaru doing a can dance than Sasuke working with others. Sarutobi stared at the young Chunin. Never put that image in my head again, he said. So Anko-chan, how do you want to do this? Asked Naruto quietly. They were hiding in a tree while staring at Kakashi who hadn't moved in the last half hour. Well, first we need to know how serious he's going to be taking us, said Anko. Most likely, he'll treat us like we're a joke. So if he does then we have the element of surprise. If he does take us seriously then we'll have no choice but to bring out the big guns. Naruto's eyes widened. Not the big guns. Alright then, said Naruto. I'll go first. If he isn't taking us seriously, then while I catch him off guard you can get his bells. Kakashi scanned the area. So far their ability to hide themselves was in the acceptable range. Now he just had to wait for them to come and try to take the bells. After all, why go out looking for them when they had to come to him? I wonder who will try first. As soon as he thought that, Naruto jumped in front of him. Hey, said Naruto. We're going to fight now. You know, compared to the others you're a little weird, deadpanned Kakashi. Naruto shocked him by grinning. I like to do things my own way even if it doesn't make sense, he said. He then began to do some quick stretches. Now let's have a good fight. Very well, said a bored Kakashi. Lesson 1. Taijutsu. He then reached behind his back and pulled out an orange book. In one motion he opened it and began to read. Begin whenever you're ready. What are you doing? Asked an annoyed Naruto. It seems you really did earn your title of being dead last, said Kakashi. What's it look like? I'm reading. Naruto's eye twitched. I know what you're doing, he said. Why are you reading? To see what happens next, replied Kakashi. Naruto sighed. This won't feel right, he said. Don't worry, said Kakashi. Your attacks won't affect me at all. Fine, said Naruto as he charged at Kakashi. He started with a right hook which Kakashi blocked with one hand and without looking away from his book. Naruto tried again with his left, then his right, and then a high jump roundhouse kick. Kakashi blocked them all with ease. Naruto then aimed for the older nin's gut, but Kakashi vanished from sight and appeared crouched on the ground with his hands in the Tora position. Never allow your opponent to get behind you, said Kakashi. Anko and Sasuke tensed in fear. They knew that the Tora sign was needed for Kaiten Jutsus. Konohagakure hidden. Taijutsu no Gai. Senengarashi. With that, Naruto went flying into the air while holding his ass. But imagine Kakashi's surprise when Naruto did a backflip in the air and began to hover a dozen or so feet above Kakashi's head. Tai, said Naruto as he rubbed his ass. He then looked at Kakashi and pointed an accusing finger at him. That was a low blow. How would you like it if someone shoved their fingers up your ass? Naruto, how are you doing that? Asked Kakashi as he began to scan for wires. Sasuke was doing the same from his hiding spot. Finding none, he gritted his teeth. That power should be his. With it, he could easily kill Itachi. Oh this, said Naruto. This is just something that I had been working on since I was little. Believe me, when I first got it working, I could only stay up in the air for a minute at most. But now, I can do it all day long. Well, if I had breakfast this morning that would be true. Oh well, no sense bitching about it. Naruto smirked as an idea popped into his head. With great force he shot up and kept on going until he reached the clouds. Shikamaru would do anything for this. He then took a deep breath and then began to fly downward at an incredible speed. Fun fact, the fastest wind speed is 318 miles per hour, and since Naruto can only move as fast as the wind can he. Kakashi stared at Naruto as he came down and then pulled up before he hit the tree line. As he did this, Naruto made several clones that fell towards Kakashi. For a moment, Kakashi was confused. What was he thinking? Why weren't his clones flying around? Then he remembered the report from the Mizuki incident. Shit, he said as the clones hit the ground and exploded. When the smoke cleared, nothing was left of the one-eyed Jonin. All that was left was a crater, well that and some wood that lay in pieces. Anko pieced it together first. She quickly began to scan the area for Kakashi. Her eyes widened when she found him. Naruto. Watch out, she yelled as Kakashi jumped out of a tree towards Naruto. Naruto, who looked like he was standing straight up, flung himself backwards to avoid Kakashi's lunge. Missing him, Kakashi fell to the ground. Well I will say this, said Kakashi as he got up and looked at Naruto. Out of all the genin teams I've had, you are the first one to ever take me seriously when I said to try to kill me. Naruto grinned at that. But don't let that get to your head. In order to get the bells you would have to get in close. Once you get close enough it will be easier to get you. He was right. The closer to the ground the more restricted Naruto became to objects like trees and buildings. That may be true, said Naruto. But, I'm not your only opponent. Kakashi wondered if he meant his clones when his senses told him to dodge. He jumped to the left as the long flexible blade of an Yurumi, weapon the Cho uses against Kenshin, pierced the air where he once stood. He looked over and saw Anko holding the weapon with a grin on her face. She then pulled her arm back and the blade, like a whip, returned to her. While Kakashi had his eye away from his book to look at Anko, Naruto threw some of his kunai at him. Kakashi moved to avoid them, and Anko lashed out with her weapon again. Kakashi pulled out one of his own kunai to block the attack, but Anko saw this. With a twist of her wrist she was able to change the path of her weapon, but Kakashi still managed to block it. "Time to give up, sensei," said Anko as attacked with her weapon again. This time it seemed to miss him, but swerved to attack him from behind. The weapon struck him, but then Kakashi turned into a log. Kakashi appeared in the middle of the field. "It's getting harder to enjoy my book," he said. "They are using good teamwork. Anko attacking by land while Naruto strikes from the air is a good strategy. But that's not enough. I wonder how good Sasuke is." A sudden change in the wind caused Kakashi to look up at Naruto again to see him doing something strange. He was spinning his arm around until a small twister seemed to cover it. "Hey sensei," said Naruto with a grin. "Let me show you what I created without the help of the academy." The twister then got smaller, beginning halfway between his elbow and wrist to half a foot from his fist. "Meet the jutsu that I perfected 2 years ago. Senpiken." With that, he shot down towards Kakashi, who dodged it. However, he didn't get far enough away due to him misjudging the damage that it would cause. When Naruto struck the earth, Kakashi was blown away by the winds. Kakashi slowly got up a few yards from where he was thrown. That jutsu is like my Harakiri but with wind. He then noticed that Naruto hadn't taken to the sky again. He was panting and beginning to sweat a little. But it seems that he is running low on chakra. Not surprising considering he's been flying, using Bunshin Daibakuha, and now that Senpiken at half strength. I better end this. Time for lesson 2. Jinjutsu, said Kakashi. He got up. He then did several hand signs and a few moments later, both Anko and Naruto looked like they were about to nod off. A few seconds after that, they were both asleep. My turn, said Sasuke as he appeared to challenge Kakashi. I'm not like the others. Now it's time to see what the number 1 rookie can do, said Kakashi as he put away his book. As the two began to fight, Sakura was watching them and cheering for Sasuke in her mind. By the look of her, she had been watching him and only him since he got to the training field. She then held her breath when Sasuke touched a bell, but failed to take it. As he got up, he began to make hand signs. That looks like an advanced jutsu, thought Sakura. No one just out of the academy can do something like that. Not another one, thought Kakashi. Pain. Mkakik no jutsu. With that, Sasuke unleashed a large fireball on his sensei. When the attack ended, he saw nothing of the one-eyed Jonin. Then hands grabbed him from the ground and pulled him under while saying, Doten. Shinju's Anshu no jutsu. Soon Sasuke was just ahead. A few minutes later, he heard the sound of the alarm. Time to decide their fates, he said with an eye smile. Hey Hinata-chan, yelled Naruto when he spotted Hinata on the streets. Said girl turned around and saw Naruto and Anko walking towards her. They were both grinning slightly. Naruto-kun. Anko, she said. How did your exam go? We'll tell you over ramen, said Naruto as his grin got a little bigger. Hinata nodded and the three of them headed towards Ichiruka's ramen. Hyuga Hanabi was at that moment walking home. As she walked she would let out a small sigh every few minutes. Her flower arrangement class had bored her to death. Again. It wouldn't have been as bad if she wasn't the only person in the class that was under 15. Hell, she was the youngest person in that class by at least 10 years. Most of the other people in the village waited for their daughters to get into the academy to being stuff like that. But Hyuga Hiashi would never stick her in a public class since she was the clan's heir. The young Hyuga's days followed the same pattern. She would get up early and do some light sparring. Then she would have breakfast before going from one lesson to the next. Then she would go home and eat followed by a half-an-hour break. Then it would be more sparring and then finally sleep. Today she was lucky that the rest of her afternoon classes were cancelled for various reasons. As Hanabi walked she saw other kids her age playing. She envied them. She knew that she had a duty to her clan, something that her father never let her forget, but still she wanted to be part of the crowd. Hanabi wanted someone to confide in when she felt her father was pushing her too hard. She wanted someone to do girl things with. Sadly, her mother had died giving birth to her and she didn't have any brothers or sisters. All she had were her father and cousin. Niji was hard to talk. He only spoke to her when ordered and the stare he gave her was ice cold. Hiashi would never talk about anything other than how her classes were going and how important it was that she succeed. At least Tusan is letting me join the academy, said Hanabi to no one. Maybe then I'll make some friends. It was then that she passed Ichiruka's ramen stand. She had passed by it many times in the past. The scents coming from it always made her stomach growl, but she never went there. Her father had told her that she should never disgrace herself by eating at places commoners eat. As usual, there was the same loud blonde that seemed to be there all the time. With him were two girls. One had purple hair and was wearing a trench coat. She was eating dango while helping the blonde tell a story to the other girl. Hanabi stopped dead in her tracks when she saw the other girl. She had blue hair and had the same lavender eyes as her clan did. But she knew every main branch member of the family, and that girl didn't have a birdcage seal on her, or at least she couldn't see from her point of view. So, who was she? The blue-haired girl turned her head slightly, and the Hanabi let out a light gasp. That girl resembled the pictures of her mother. Who was this girl? This was something that Hanabi had to find out. So she went across the street and began to spy on them. "So how did you pass?" asked Hinata after they told her about the Jinjutsu. "Well, he kind of just passed us," said Anko as she took a bite of her dango. Naruto nodded as he slurped his ramen. Flashback. Kakashi had placed all three of the genins in front of the posts. Sasuke began to brush off the dirt on his clothing as Naruto and Anko were released from the Jinjutsu. "What happened?" asked Naruto as he slowly got up. "You passed," said Kakashi with an eye smile. Sasuke gave him a look of superiority. Naruto and Anko on the other hand looked confused. "Ah, sensei," said Naruto first. "Not that I have a problem or anything about this, but why the hell are you passing us?" finished Anko. "We did get the bells." "That's true," said Kakashi. "But that wasn't the real test. The bells were a distraction so I could see how you all worked as a team." He looked at Anko first. "You seemed more interested in killing me for some reason." Anko let out a low growl as he moved over to Naruto. "You just wanted to fight." Naruto scratched the back of his head as Kakashi then looked at Sasuke. "Sasuke here thinks that the two of you are a burden that would hold him back." Both Anko and Naruto snorted at this. "However, 2 out of the 3 of you managed to work as a team. So I have decided that you all pass. Naruto and Anko may go. Sasuke, I want to talk to you." Then flashback. "Wow," said Hinata as they finished the story. "I'm glad you both passed. But, I wonder what he wanted to talk to Sasuke about." "Hopefully he's telling Sasuke that he isn't the center of the universe," said Anko before drinking some tea. "If chakra was equal to one's ego, that guy would be beyond cage level." "That's true," said Naruto after finishing his 5th bowl. "It might hurt us later on. Especially when he runs into someone later on that he is no match for. He'll underestimate the guy and then we'll all have to pay." Over with Sasuke, he and Kakashi were doing some light sparring. "Too slow," said Kakashi as he dodged a punch aimed at his gut. Sasuke growled as he jumped into the air and threw 3 kunai at Kakashi. Kakashi smiled at this attempt and merely pulled out his own kunai to deflect Sasuke's. "It's not over yet," yelled Sasuke when he landed. He then charged at Kakashi and began a series of punches that were all blocked by the Jonin. This continued for another 15 minutes. By that time, Sasuke was drenched in sweat. "Let's end it here," said Kakashi looking fresh as a daisy. "From now on, after we do team training and missions, we will do one-on-one training once everyone else is gone." "Why?" demanded Sasuke. "Do you think that I am that weak?" "Sasuke," said Kakashi calmly. "I know all about your goal to kill Itachi. At this moment you wouldn't last 1 minute against him." Sasuke let out a growl and narrowed his eyes. "Well, Naruto does know some interesting jutsus and Anko has. Once it has been fully awakened you will be in a position to copy their styles and jutsus for yourself." Sasuke smirked at this. "Is that why you really passed us?" asked Sasuke. "Perhaps," said Kakashi with an eye smile. "I will admit that I am curious to how the Senpuken works." Then Kakashi became serious. "Alright, I want you to get some rest. Tomorrow will be a big day for you. Say, Hinata-chan, would you like us to walk you home?" asked Naruto as they left the ramen stand. Anko gave the blonde a bump on the head. "Baka," she said. "Don't go volunteering me to do stuff." She then gave him another bump on the head. "Besides, she's a big girl. I'm sure she'll be alright." Anko then turned to the former Hyuga and smirked. "Right, Hinata?" When Naruto had first asked her if she wanted to be walked home, Hinata's face turned bright red. However, after what Anko said, it was red for a different reason. Anger. She wanted Naruto to walk home with her. However, after what Anko said, asking him to do that might make her look pathetic. Hinata knew why she was doing this. Anko also had feeling for Naruto. How did she know this? It was simple. Hinata accidentally stumbled upon Anko's pink diary with unicorns on the cover one day while she was at her place. Since then, whenever she got the chance, she would sneak a peek. It turned out that Anko had developed feeling for him about a year ago. Not surprising since they were always together and that they had the same personality. One thing they would agree on was that they didn't want to share the blonde. "That's true," said Hinata with a smile of her own. But since Naruto-kun did make the offer, I would be happy to accept. Hinata then went over to Naruto and grabbed one of his arms. She then held onto it tightly while blushing madly. After all, that is what a gentleman does. Right, Naruto-kun? I guess so, said Naruto nervously, having no idea what was really going on. Anko puffed her checks. Fine, said Anko. Let's walk her home. As the three left, Hanabi came out of her hiding place from across the street. Who is she, thought Hanabi. If she were from the Branch family, she would have had the seal on her forehead. But she doesn't. Who is this Hinata and why do I feel as if I know her? The training of Team 7 began the next day. Kakashi told them to be at the bridge near the training grounds bright and early and then show up 3 hours later. That was when training began. For Naruto, it was less than impressive. Kakashi told him to sit on top of a post with his legs crossed and placed a book on his head. He was to remain like that until Kakashi told him to stop. When Naruto asked why, Kakashi told him it would help with his balance and patience. Anko received a lesson that was meant to teach her patience as well. Basically, Kakashi dumped a bag of rice on the ground and told Anko to pick it up one piece at a time with chopsticks. One could only imagine their fury when they saw Sasuke's training. It would start out with light sparring where Kakashi would point out flaws in the boy's form. Then he had Sasuke do some strength-enhancing exercises. After that, the team would be given a half-hour lunch break and then some team sparring. However, Kakashi would place restrictions on Naruto and Anko while Sasuke could go all out. He told the two of them that they had to learn how to deal when their best wasn't available and to better see their flaws. In truth, however, Kakashi felt it would better help Sasuke if they trained this way. From their spars, Kakashi noted that Naruto wasn't as fast without his flying powers. Anko proved to be skilled with or without her weapons. However, it hurt her when she couldn't use a single jutsu and Sasuke could. After that, the team would do missions or, as Anko would call them, chores. Cleaning people's yards, racking yards, finding lost pets, unclogging toilets, they did it all. Yet, their shinobi skills were really being used. So, time went by. The only one who had any change in their training was Sasuke. Naruto and Anko did the same thing day after day. After a while, Naruto got fed up with this and tried using his cage bunshin with a hinge so he and Anko could do something else. However, it did not fool Kakashi, who tied them to posts. So from then on they trained after the team left with whatever daylight was left. As for Sakura, she was kicked out of the shinobi program forever. As her former teammates really wanted to beat her to a bloody pulp, they couldn't. Sakura was now a civilian and they were still shinobi, sort of. If they did, they would be punished and would lose their chance at becoming full genins themselves. Her other old classmates looked down at her with disdain, feeling that she had just wasted their and her time. Ino just shook her head when she saw her and walked away. After the exam, Sakura got a job working in the library. She was placed in the basement where she had to preserve newspapers and clean books. And that's enough of her for now. Later. Well done, Team 7, said the old man after they had returned from bringing back Tora. We have a couple more missions for you. He begins to shift through his papers. We have picking up dog poop, weeding gardens, cleaning my garage, helping old ladies cross the street, and… No. Shouted Naruto. Make the hell no, said Anko. I tired of all these chores, Ajusan, shouted Naruto. Don't you have any real missions? For once I agree with the dope, said Sasuke, I demand a mission that is more challenging and worthy of an Uchiha. Stop acting like children, said Iruka. Team 7 has only been active for about 2 months now and you three are still too green. Till we feel that you are ready you will be given simple missions. Come on Iruka-sensei, pleaded Naruto. No, said Iruka. Any higher level missions are too dangerous for you and that is that. At that moment the Hokage stepped in. Allow me to explain, said the Hokage. Missions are based on a letter system with A being at the top and D at the bottom. A-ranked missions are for Jonin and Anbu. B-ranked missions are for rookie Jonin and high Chunin. C-ranked missions go to Chunin and experienced Genin. D-ranked missions are for you rookies so that you can work on teamwork. We will get the occasional S-ranked mission, but that's not for you to worry about. But how are you supposed to know when we are ready for something when we don't do anything to prove it? Demanded Anko. We could hunt down that stupid cat for years and it would show how well we can perform on a higher ranked mission. Isn't there a mission that we can do? Asked Naruto. We're not asking for an assignation mission or anything major, just a chance to prove that we can do something more than what we are doing now. The Hokage took a drag. He hated to admit it, but they had a point. Perhaps it was time for them to see the real world. Very well, said the Hokage. We do happen to have a mission that Team 7 would be able to do. It is a simple escort mission. Cool. Said Naruto. What kind of escort are we doing? Asked Anko eagerly. Are we protecting some daimyo? Or maybe a princess? Asked a hopeful Naruto. Easy, laughed the Hokage. I was about to introduce him. you may come in now. Team 7 turned their head to face the door on the other side of the room. Slowly it opened to reveal an old drink man holding a large bottle of sake. "What's this?" he asked. "These are just some super brats. Especially the midget with the super stupid looking face." Naruto laughed. "I wonder who he's talking about." A midget with Naruto stopped there when it began to dawn on him. Anko was only 7 inches taller than him, making her the second shortest one on the team. Slowly, wind began to circle around Naruto's feet. "If a fight's what you want then fine," said Naruto with gritted teeth. "Don't Naruto," said Kakashi as he held on to the back of Naruto's shirt. "What's the point of killing the person you were hired to protect?" "Who said anything about killing?" said Naruto. "I was just going to beat down." "I am the super bridge builder Tazuna," said Tazuna after he took a gulp of sake. "I am expecting super protection for you until I get back to my home country and finish the bridge." "Alright team," said Kakashi. "I want you all packed and ready to leave in 1 hour. Meet at the gate." 1 hour later. The whole of Team 7 showed up on time at the gates. When I say the whole Team 7 I mean Kakashi too. "Oh my Kami," cried Anko as she pointed at Kakashi. "It has to be a phony." Kakashi just sweat dropped. "It's really me," said Kakashi. "You're right," said Naruto. "You have never been on time since the day we meet you." "This is important," said Kakashi. "And we aren't." Thought Team 7 as one. "Hey, they're acting like a team." "Alright, let's go," cheered Anko and Naruto a few minutes later. Tazuna looked a bit worried. "Why are you so excited?" asked Tazuna. "Well, I have never left the village," said Anko. "The only place I have ever been to outside of here is AIM," said Naruto with a large grin. Kakashi raised an eye at that. He didn't know that. But then again, he never read Naruto's file. "Are you sure these brats can handle this?" asked Tazuna to Kakashi. Kakashi chuckled a bit. "Don't worry," said Kakashi. "They may be just a bunch of rookies, but I have been training them very hard." Anko and Naruto turned around to glare at Kakashi. "And if things go wrong I will step in and take care of things myself. I am a Jonin after all." "I hope so," said Tazuna as he and Team 7 left the village. "We're incredible," said Naruto as they walked. "Anko-chan is going to be the next head of the Anbu torture and interrogation, and I'm going to be the Hokage someday. Just you wait and see. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, so remember it." Tazuna just took another gulp of his sake. "The Hokage is the #1 person in your village, right?" he asked. "I doubt that someone like you could ever make it to Hokage." "Shut up," said Naruto. "I'm prepared to do anything to become Hokage. Once I become Hokage then even you will have to respect me." "No I won't," said Tazuna. Later. "Hey sensei," said Anko after they had been walking for a while. "What is it?" asked the lazy Jonin. "Are there any shinobi in Nami no Kuni?" asked Anko. "No," he responded. "If there were then Tazuna-san wouldn't have hired us. There are many different villages. However, only 5 largest countries hold the villages where one can receive the title of Kage. They are the Mist, Leaf, Sand, Rock, and Cloud. Their leaders are the Mizukage, Hokage, Kazekage, Tsuchikage, and Reikage." "So will we be facing any shinobi?" asked Anko hopefully. "Doubtful," answered Kakashi. "That's a pity," said Naruto. "I was really hoping to see some action." While Naruto said this, Sasuke and Kakashi noticed Tazuna sweat a little. Shortly after that they passed by a puddle which only Kakashi paid any notice to. After they had walked several feet from it, 2 shinobi from Kiri jumped out of it. They were the demon brothers. Silently and quickly they wrapped their chain around Kakashi, and when everyone turned around they saw Kakashi being shredded. "That's 1, said one of them. They then appeared behind Naruto. "This makes 2, said the other. With the same quick motions the chain began to wrap around Naruto. It would have done the same to Kakashi had Naruto not shot up several yards in the air. "Assholes!" he screamed. While their chains were still in the air, Sasuke managed to pin them to a tree using a kunai and a shuriken. Cursing their luck they headed towards Tazuna. Seeing this, Anko grabbed the hilt of her sword that was tied around her waist. However, before they could touch her Kakashi appeared and, just like that, they were stopped. One was caught in a neck hold while the other was being carried under Kakashi's arm. "Sorry about that," said Kakashi with a lazy look on his face. Naruto looked over to where he had seen his sensei die. All that remained were pieces of wood. He cursed himself as he slowly fell back to the earth. "Naruto, please don't run off when a fight starts." "Sasuke, good job." "I didn't run away," growled Naruto. "I was avoiding being killed and—" "That's enough Naruto," said Kakashi. He then turned to Tazuna. "Tazuna, why did you lie to us?" "I don't know what you're talking about," said Tazuna. "The reason I didn't take this idiots out earlier was because I wanted to see who they were really after," said Kakashi. "They were after you. You hired us to protect you from bandits and things like that, but protecting you from shinobi is at least a B-ranked mission. So tell why you lied to us." "I guess I might as well tell you," said Tazuna with a sigh. There is an evil businessman named Gato who is after me. Publicly, he owns a shipping company, but that's only a cover. He's a smuggler and drug dealer. He came to Wave a few years ago and took over the country. He controls all the ports and has caused our land to become isolated and impoverished. So why is he after you? Asked Naruto. Because I'm building a bridge, said Tazuna. When it is finished, it will connect our land with the outside world and we will be able to trade freely once again and our economy will recover. So, if you knew this then why didn't you ask for better ninjas? Asked Anko. Too expensive. If I told them all of that, then I couldn't afford you guys. Please, I'll pay you all back once our economy recovers. I don't see why we should, said Kakashi. It's not our problem and since you lied to us that means that the mission is terminated. No way, yelled Naruto. Come on, this is our first real mission and you just want to walk away. No, said Sasuke with a smirk. You would rather fly away. I wasn't flying away team. Shouted Naruto. If I hadn't done that I would never have seen. Stop it Naruto, said Kakashi as he rubbed his head. We now have to decide on what to do. Please help us, said Tazuna. But, if you don't my daughter will hate the leaf forever and my super cute grandson will cry. Kakashi's sweat dropped. Fine will help you, said Kakashi with a sigh. Hey Naruto, said Anko as she walked over to him. What were you trying to say earlier? I was going to say I was also looking to see if there were any other shinobi in the area, said Naruto. As I was coming down I thought I saw one running away from here. That would mean they will be regrouping, said Sasuke. You are very right, said Kakashi as he nodded to Sasuke. He then looked at Naruto. Well it looks like your act of cowardness paid off in the end. With that he began to walk away. I really hate him, growled Naruto. Team 7 along with Tazuna traveled for a couple of days until they reached Nami no Kuni. A boat was waiting for them and snuck them in. Once they got to shore, Tazuna told them that they would be staying at his place. As they walked in the forest, Naruto heard a noise in the bushes and threw a kunai at it. A white rabbit jumped out of the bush and ran away. What are you doing dope? Asked Sasuke. I thought I heard something, said Naruto in defense. Interesting, said Kakashi as he rubbed his chin. What's interesting? Asked Tazuna. That rabbit's fur was white, said Kakashi. Rabbit's fur changes white during the winter months, but it's summer. The only other time it changes like that is when it has been kept in captivity for too long. Meaning that get down. With that, everyone hit the floor as a giant blade flew through the air where they had been standing. It then curved upwards and was caught by a man standing on a tree. He had dark hair, no eyebrows, bandages covering his face, and dark pants. He was shirtless showing the world his muscles. Well, so these are the people who defeated the demon brothers, said the man with amusement in his voice. Lamachi Zabuza, I never thought someone like you would sell out to Gato, said Anko. Kakashi no Sharingan, I am honored that you have heard of me, said Zabuza. My target is only the old man so if you don't want to die then just step away. Sorry but that is not possible, said Kakashi as his hand went to his forehead protector. He then turned his attention to his team. I want you all to get into a defensive formation around Tazuna. Keep him safe and don't get involved with his fight. He then lifted his protector and revealed his Sharingan. Zabuza will be fighting me. Ah, the Sharingan already, I am honored, said Zabuza. Naruto then raised his hand as if he were in class. This may be a bad time, he began. But, what is the Sharingan? The Sharingan is a Taijutsu, said Sasuke. It allows the user to see through all Jinjutsu, Taijutsu and Ninjutsu and then cancels their effects. But, that's not their only ability. That's correct, said Zabuza. The really scary thing about them is that they can copy any opponent's jutsu. So that's how you were able to copy over 1,000 jutsus, said Naruto. Slowly a fog began to roll into the area. Let's cut this chit-chat, said Zabuza. Hand over the old man. Naruto, Sasuke, and Anko got into a formation to defend Tazuna. Looks like I have to defeat you then. Every well. Zabuza then jumped into the water and said, Ninpu. Kurigakure no jutsu with that, the mist was now everywhere. Be careful, said Kakashi. Zabuza is a master with the silent killing technique. Just like it sounds, he can kill you without making a sound or any other way of sensing him. Most likely, you'll be dead before you realize it. Also I can't use my Sharingan to its fullest due to the mist. So keep your guard up. He paused so they could absorb this information. But if you fail, you'll only die. No big deal really. What the hell? Growled Anko. 8 points, said Zabuza from all directions. Liver, lungs, spine, collarbone, jugular vein, larynx, kidneys, heart. So many wonderful choices. Kakashi, who was getting tired of this, flared up his chakra to dispel this mist. What a powerful killing intent, thought Sasuke. If I make a single mistake, I'll die. I can't stand this. I'd rather kill myself than take this much longer. Before he could carry out his plan, Kakashi spoke to him. "Don't worry Sasuke," he said. "I won't let anything happen to you." His eyes then widened when he saw that Zabuza had appeared in the middle of their defenses. Using his speed, Kakashi raced over to them, knocking them down and embedding his kunai into Zabuza's chest. The three genin stared at Zabuza as his chest dripped water. "Behind you sensei," called out Anko. As Kakashi turned around, the Zabuza he had stabbed turned into a puddle of water as the real Zabuza cut him in half. Zabuza looked very pleased with himself until Kakashi turned to water. "A Mizubunshin," said Zabuza in shock. He must have copied it even in the mist. Then he felt a kunai press against his throat. "This is the end," said Kakashi. Zabuza just chuckled. "Is it?" he asked as he turned into a puddle of water and the real one appeared behind Kakashi. "I don't think so." With that, the real Zabuza swung his sword in an attempt to cut the real Kakashi in half. Kakashi ducked, but Zabuza used the momentum of his swing and turned it into a kick that sent the real Kakashi into the water. As Kakashi slowly began to climb onto the water's surface, Zabuza made same hand signs and said, "Suryo no Jutsu." Kakashi was now trapped in a sphere of water. "Shit," said Kakashi in the water prison. "Don't worry Kakashi," said Zabuza. "I'll finish you off later. First, Mizubunshin no Jutsu." "You three are just brats," said the water clone as it appeared on dry land. "A shinobi is only a shinobi when he has gone through many life and death situations. You're just a bunch of brats playing dress up. Ninpu. Kurigaku no Jutsu." The mist soon returned to the area. "I'll tell you this, you will only be a shinobi when your name appears in my bingo book." The Bunshin then raced to attack its first victim. It went right to Naruto with its sword raised high in the air. However, when it got close all of the mist seemed to vanish while it was in mid-swing. The Mizubunshin then noticed the blonde's arm. There was a twister around his arm. "Let's have some fun," said Naruto as he moved the Senpiken into a defensive stance. The Mizubunshin's blade hit the side of the Senpiken and there was an explosion. It was small, but enough so that everyone was blinded by the dust that was sent into the air. When it cleared, Naruto was the only one standing. I wondered what would happen if I did that. Looks like I got lucky." "What does that mean, dope?" yelled Sasuke. "You mean to tell us that you have never used it like this before?" "Yeah," said Naruto. "I mean, I missed all of the other times I came into contact with foreign shinobi to use this jutsu." "Smart ass," said Sasuke. "I'll tell you this much," said Naruto. "I have never used it on a person. What I just did was tilt the air current so when it exploded my enemy took all the damage." He then turned to Anko. "Hey Anko-chan, it looks like I'll have to use it now." "Geez," said Anko as she scratched the back of her head. "Just use it already." Naruto grinned as he reached back into his pouch. "What are you all thinking?" yelled Kakashi. "You all have to get out of here. Our mission was to protect Izuna. Have you forgotten that?" Everyone then looked at Izuna. "I'm sorry for doing this to you all," he said. "It is because of me that you are in this position. Now, I don't want to die a super bad death or anything, but if you want to fight then fight." "And there you have it," said Naruto as he pulled out the Raijin. "Hey eyebrowless freak, I'll tell you something. I have been in life and death situations before. People have tried to kill me my whole life. I have been beaten, stabbed, starved, and I have survived it all so I can fulfill my dream. One day I will be Hokage. Do you hear me?" "Interesting," said Zabuza. "Let's see if you can back that up." Naruto's only answer was a smirk as he lifted himself into the air and activated the Raijin. He then shot towards where Kakashi and Zabuza were standing. Zabuza, well shocked that someone could fly, got his sword into a defensive position. Naruto then veered right and began to circle around them, going faster and faster with each pass. Zabuza tried to swing at the white blur, but it was going just too fast. Getting fed up with his, Zabuza threw high Zanbato which hit Naruto. Zabuza smirked until he saw the blonde shinobi vanish in cloud of smoke. "Ah, what did my cage bunshin ever do to you?" asked Naruto mockingly. Zabuza looked around for the blonde only to find him floating in the air on the other side of the water sphere. "I wonder what would happen if I stabbed this thing?" asked Naruto with an insane smile. Kakashi and Zabuza began to shake their heads. Naruto nodded back at them. "And Naruto," stammered Kakashi. "Water conducts electricity. If you stab this thing I'll get shocked." "So will Zabuza unless he releases you," countered Naruto. "And judging by the look in his eyes he knows that." "You're insane," said Zabuza. "Hanging out with Anko-chan does that to ya," said Naruto as he stabbed the water sphere with the Raijin. Kakashi and Zabuza immediately felt the electricity and got the shock of their lives. After a moment, Zabuza let go and released Kakashi. "I hate that kid," said Zabuza. Smoke was coming off of his entire body and there was that faint smell of burnt flesh. "What the hell have you been teaching him?" "I never taught him that," groaned Kakashi who was kneeling on the water. "Like you haven't taught me anything," deadpan Naruto. "Now, where is my thank you?" "Why the hell should I thank you?" yelled Kakashi as he turned to face Naruto. "I broke you out of that prison," said Naruto. "You could have killed me," yelled Kakashi. "But I didn't," said Naruto with a grin. Kakashi turned back to Zabuza. "When we get back to the village, I'm going to have a talk with the Hokage about this," he said. "As for you Zabuza, the same trick won't work on me twice." "We'll see about that," said Zabuza. They then began to fight once again with Kakashi copying Zabuza's every motion. Naruto flew up into the air in case Kakashi got stuck again. As they fought, Naruto noticed something in the trees. It looked like someone in a mask from Mizu was watching them. Naruto kept an eye on this person until he heard Kakashi say, "Futon. Daibakufu no Jutsu." Naruto then looked down to see Zabuza being blasted by a large blast of water that sent him into a tree. "Can you see the future?" asked Zabuza as Kakashi stood above him. "Hi," said Kakashi as he pulled out his kunai. "And your future is death." It was then that two senbon's needles stuck Zabuza in the neck. After everyone was done with their looks of surprise, Kakashi went over to check out Zabuza. "He's dead." "Thank you for your assistance," said the masked person as he came out of hiding. "I was afraid that I would not be enough to take down the legendary demon of the bloody mist." The person then gave them a bow. "An oinen," said Kakashi. "What's an oinen?" asked Naruto as his feet touched the ground. "They are a group that hunts down traitors that abandon their villages," said Kakashi. "They are to kill them and then dispose of the body so that their village's secrets won't fall into the enemy's hands." "That is correct," said the oinen in a very feminine voice. "Now I must dispose of the body." The oinen then vanished and then appeared next to Zabuza. Carefully, the oinen picked him up and the two vanished. "That was super good work," said Tazuna. "Let me take you back to my home for some super sake and some rest." "Hi," said Kakashi. He then noticed that something was missing. He felt his pockets and noticed that his Icha book was missing. That bastard stole the precious. A moment later, Kakashi fainted due to fatigue and shock. Kakashi slowly opened his eyes and stared up at the tsunami. "About time you woke up," she said. She then turned her head towards a flight of stairs. "Hey, he's awake," she said in a slightly louder voice. A moment later Kakashi heard the sounds of several footsteps. Soon, he was greeted by the faces of his students and Tazuna. Slowly, Kakashi moved into a sitting position and looked around. If his guess was right, he was in the living room of house that Tazuna lived in. There was a flight of stairs that told him this was a two-story building. He could see the kitchen that was empty except for a table, some cabinets, and a few modern connivances. The furniture looked old and patched up. It looked like Tazuna wasn't kidding about being poor. "Good to see you up," said Tazuna. "Don't worry, you're safe here in my daughter's home. I doubt that Gato will send anyone else after you defeated that Jonin." "Maybe," said Kakashi with an air of uncertainty. He then looked at his students. "You all have done well. But Naruto, you shouldn't harm your allies or argue with your sensei in those kinds of situations. Don't you think you're being a bit hard on him?" asked Tazuna. "He did get you out of that mess after all. And besides, you won." "He could have gotten us all killed," said Kakashi. Naruto was about to say something when a new person entered the room. "Ah, Inari," said Tazuna as he looked over at the boy. He was wearing green overalls and a blue shirt. On his head was hat. "Everyone, I would like you to meet my super grandson Inari. Inari, these are the people who risk their lives to save me." "There's no point," said Inari. "The what?" asked Anko with a raised eyebrow. "What you are doing," answered Inari. "No matter what you do, Gato will kill you." And with that he turned around and headed out the door. "Inari wait," cried the boy's mother as she raced out the door after him. "Humph," said Sasuke. "Took the words right out of my mouth," said Anko as she crossed her arms. Naruto said nothing but gritted his teeth. "Never mind him," said Kakashi as everyone turned their attention back at him. "Right now we have more important things to worry about. The more I think about it the more I believe that Zabuza is alive." "But we saw him die," said Sasuke. "Think about it," said Kakashi. "An oinen is in charge of disposing of the Nukenin's body. But instead of doing it right then and there, he moved the body. Also, consider the weapon that he used. Senbon needles don't do that much damage. But an oinen has knowledge of the human body so that he would know where all the weak points are. He could easily hit a nerve that could put someone in a dead-like state. That said, I believe that they are working together." "Don't you think that you are overthinking this?" asked Tazuna. Kakashi shrugged. "I'd rather train them from something that won't happen than to not train them for something that will happen," replied the Cyclops. "Besides, I want my book back." Everyone's sweat dropped as he ruined the moment. Over in an open field, Haku examined the body of Zabuza. After a few minutes she then unwrapped some tools and selected something that looked like tweezers. Slowly she moved the tool near the man's neck in an attempt to remove the needles. However, Zabuza woke up and pulled them out himself. "You really shouldn't do things like that," said Haku as she took off her mask. "Those needles were in deep. You could have seriously put yourself in danger." Also, reached into the large man's pants pocket and pulled out an orange book. If you have time to grab something like this, then you have time to kill your opponent. Shut up, stammered Zabuza as he tried to get the book back. It was bad enough that the girl was scolding him like a child, but finding out he had porn was even worse. She just didn't understand that he was a man with needs. And since they were on the run, he couldn't stay in one stop long enough to meet a woman. So that book would have to do. Unfortunately for him, Haku wouldn't let him get his hands back on the book. I would have had him if it wasn't for that gaki with the Raijin. Oh, said Haku with interest. So that was the Raijin. I always wondered what it looked like. The Raijin, said Zabuza as he continued to try and grab the book. One of the 5 great elemental weapons. Each one, like the cages, represents one of the 5 great shinobi nations. I had heard that that sword had been returned home. But I never thought that a kid would have it. A flying kid at that. Now I have one more reason to go after the bridge builder. But that weapon, I will be one step closer to reaching my goals. The Raijin or the blonde? Asked Haku. Maybe both, said Zabuza with a grin. He could see it now. The blonde could fly into the village and drop exploding tags all over the place while he snuck in. Then with the Raijin he could kill the Mizuki and take his place. Well, you're not doing it anytime soon, said Haku in her serious voice. It will take at least a week for these wounds to heal. She then smiled sweetly at Zabuza. But don't worry, my cooking will speed things up a bit. Zabuza began to sweat bullets when Haku said that. She was an amazing shinobi but was useless in the kitchen. The last time she had made him anything he could have sworn that it blinked at him. And now, in his weakened condition, he couldn't escape. Personally, he was wishing that Kakashi had gotten to him first. Elsewhere, Team 7 made their way into the woods with Kakashi on crutches. The Jonin's 3 students walked ahead of him while he talked to Tazuna, who had come along just in case. Hey Kakashi, do you have a problem with the super midget? Asked Tazuna. No, answered Kakashi. Why do you ask? Well, I've seen you put him down several times, said Tazuna as he took a swig of sake. You just seem harder on the boy. I see, said Kakashi. I wouldn't expect you to understand, but Naruto doesn't interest me that much. He's a dreamer with a few good jutsus with nothing else really going for him. He says he'll become Hokage, but that will never happen. I doubt he will ever make it past Chunin. Sasuke is a different matter. He is a genius among the shinobi of his age group. He belongs to a clan with a great Jutsu. Once he awakens it, he will become stronger than any of the other Genins and most of the Chunins. The council also knows this. That is why they are planning on making Sasuke our future Hokage. I don't know everything about the shinobi world, said Tazuna as he scratched his head. But doesn't the Hokage choose who will succeed him? That's what I heard at least. Hi, said Kakashi. The council plans on making a strong case for Sasuke's election. Sarutobi-sama will see the light sooner or later. I don't think I'll ever understand the shinobi world, thought Tazuna. Alright, let's stop here, said Kakashi as them came into a clearing. His 3 students turned around and waited for their sensei to tell them what they were going to be doing. To get you all ready in case Zabuza really is alive, I will be teaching you a technique that some Jonins can't even do. And what is that? Asked Sasuke. To climb trees, said Kakashi with an eye smile. His students seemed less than impressed. We already know how to climb a tree, said Sasuke as he crossed his arms. Kakashi didn't say anything as he walked slowly over to a nearby tree and walked up it without using his hands. The ease in which he did it made it look more like he was walking on the ground. When he reached the first branch that looked like it would hold him, he walked under it so he was upside down. He walked a little bit more before he stopped and looked down at his students. Did I forget to mention that you couldn't use your hands? Said Kakashi. He then began to walk back down to his students and employer. As you know, chakra flows through the entire body. In some areas, like the hands, it is easier to focus and to mold. The feet, on the other hand, are much harder. This exercise is going to help you work on your control so that even in the heat of battle, you don't waste any chakra. He was now in front of his students. He reached into his kunai pouch and then pulled out 3 which he then tossed to his students. Use these to record your progress. Oh, and I suggest that you get a running start. Sasuke smirked as he gripped his kunai. He then ran towards the nearest tree as quickly as he could. While he ran, he focused chakra into his feet right before he took his first step onto the tree. When his foot touched the bark there was a small explosion and Sasuke was thrown back. But not before he was able to mark where he stopped. This isn't as easy as I thought it would be, said Sasuke as he began to understand what had happened. If I use too much then the wood explodes. Hi, said Kakashi. And if you use too little then you slip right off. In order to do this you need a precise amount. He then looked over to where Naruto and Anko were and found them walking slowly up their tree with their hands in the pockets. A look of shock came on Kakashi's face, while Sasuke's became distorted in anger. Kakashi had a feeling that Naruto already knew how to do this, but not Anko. As Naruto walked down he saw the look on their faces and smirked. "What?" asked the blonde. "I've known how to do this for years. I showed Anko-chan how to do it in our second year." "I see," said Kakashi as he ignored Sasuke's growl. "Alright then, we are going to have to make some changes. I had planned on having all three of you do this for the week, but seeing this means that two of you need other things to do. Sasuke, I want you to keep working on this until you have mastered it. Naruto, when Sasuke is done I want you to teach him one of your jutsus." "Like hell I will," yelled Naruto. Kakashi just gave the boy a lazy look like he didn't care. "Naruto," he said firmly. "This is not a request, it's an order. I would do it myself but I'm in no condition. And I don't want you to teach him anything useless like the Warrick no Jutsu that I have heard about." Naruto balled up his fist so tightly that they began to bleed. Kakashi saw this but said nothing as he turned to Anko. "You will be on guard duty starting tomorrow." "But what about my training?" she demanded. "Train while you guard him then," said Kakashi as he turned around and began to walk away with Tazuna. As he walked with Tazuna, Anko gave him the one-figured salute. "So," said Tazuna once they were out of range. "Explain to me how that super brooder is the best when he needs the help of the hopeless dreamer." Kakashi groaned. "Just show me where I can get a new book," he said. Tazuna sighed. "I'm sorry to say this," said the old bridge builder. "But Gato hogs all of those books. There's not a single one in this country." At that, Kakashi screamed. Teammates stood before the Hokage as they finished their debriefing. Since Team 7 left there had been an increase of available mission. D-ranked mission were few since most people figured that they would just save some money and do them themselves. However, the ones that were given out were the ones that no one really wanted to do. That was just how it was. "Good job teammate," said the Hokage as he smiled at them. "The daimyo's wife is very pleased to have her cat back. Again. Now, I have several other missions that I could give you." He paused there simply for the effect. "What do you mean by could give?" asked Kurenai. "Today teammate will be going on its first C-ranked mission," said Sarutobi. "The Nami shipping group has been hit by a number of pirates lately and has lost their last several shipments. To correct this they have put out posters looking for people to act as guards and have asked us for additional assistance. We will be paid the usual and you will be getting a tip of 1,000 ryo for each pirate that you kill or capture." "Where is the ship heading?" asked Kurenai. "The ship is heading to a small island near the former Yuzu no Kuni," replied the Hokage. In reality he had wanted Team 7 to go with him, but his concern for the reaction of Naruto's tenet caused him to reconsider. After all, QB was the one who was responsible for that land's destruction. The pirates don't usually attack ships in that area, since few venture to that area, so it should be safe. "Once you get to the island you will begin your next mission." "We get 2 C-ranked missions," exclaimed Kiba. "What's the other one?" "Hiruchi-san will inform you of the details when you reach the island," said Sarutobi. He then looked at Hinata. "Yes, she will be joining you on that mission. You leave in 1 hour." "You heard him," said Kurenai as she turned to her students. "Be at the north gate in 1 hour." The genins bowed before the Hokage and then rushed out the door to get ready. Once they had left, Kurenai turned to the old man and stared at him. "I want to know what the second mission is about before I send my team into it. And why are we meeting up with Hiruchi?" The Hokage seemed to ignore her as he pulled out his pipe. He lit it and then took a long grab. He studied the woman before him for a while before taking one last drag. "Very well," he said. "You can't tell anyone about this mission. You and your team are to protect Hinata while Hiruchi attends her clan's meeting." Kurenai blinked in confusion. That had not been what she was expecting. Wouldn't she be safer in the village?" she asked. "I had better explain," said Sarutobi. "As you know, Hiruchi is the niece of the current daimyo. For most of her early life, she was pampered and brought up to be one of the nobles. Then, one day when she was 9, she was nearly killed in an assignation attempt. She was saved, luckily, by one of our shinobi. After that, a spark was lit that couldn't be extinguished. She wanted to become a shinobi despite her family's objections. However, they eventually gave in seeing that she would never be able to become daimyo. But things are different now. The current daimyo has no children of his own. Unless this changes his brother will remain next in line with Hiruchi in third. However, it is most likely that her father will be too old to take the throne if that happens. To decide the best course of action the clan is having a meeting on the island that you are heading to so that it will remain a secret." "I see," said Kurenai as she nodded. "But what does this have to do with Hinata?" "There is also another thing that they will be talking about," said the Hokage. "The daimyo told me before he left with Hiruchi that they want her to formally adopt Hinata as her daughter." "What?" Kurenai practically screamed. "You seem surprised," observed the Hokage. "To say the least," breathed Kurenai. "Don't get me wrong, I'm happy for Hinata. I'm just surprised that they want her now after all this time. The Hokage took another drag before continuing. If Yuruchi is moved to second in line for the throne, she will need a successor, said the Hokage. The life that woman leads is a dangerous one. Not to mention her personality. She has never been married, nor has she had children of her own. Maybe they are hoping that adding some Hyuga blood will help their family. So why is her life in danger? Repeated the red-eyed woman. Hiashi, said Sarutobi simply. Since Hinata was thrown out, he has been worried that the Byakugan will fall into another clan. If that happens, some of the branch members of his clan might try to get their children into the other one to save them from the birdcage seal. But now he has something far worse. If Hinata were to make her voice heard, she would have the power to help pass laws. She could help create a law that would banish the birdcage seal once and for all. If that happened, I would be forced to enforce it and Hiashi would be forced to obey. If he finds out where and when the meeting is taking place, I am sure that he will try his best to have her killed beforehand. Does he know about this meeting? Asked Kurenai. Unfortunately the council was informed, said the Hokage. And that man is on the council. He only knows about the meeting, but not the time and place. The first mission is a cover. I had worked it out with the shipping company so that you will be on the right boat. He stopped to have another drag. Have I explained everything? Hi, she said as she turned to leave. After all, she had to get ready too. Naruto was lying on his back on a thick tree branch on the other edge of the clearing where Sasuke was training. His hands were behind his head acting like a pillow. Anko had gone on her own to work on some snake jutsus while muttering something about lazy senseis. At least things were quiet. So quiet in fact that Naruto decided to take a nap right before he began his own training. Slowly he drifted into dreamland until. "Get down here dope," yelled Sasuke from the ground. Naruto groaned as he opened his eyes while wishing that his teammate came with a snooze button. He then got up into a sitting position with his legs dangling over the edge as he looked down at his teammate. "What do you want, team?" asked Naruto. "You're going to start teaching me that jutsu now," demanded Sasuke. Naruto smiled as he shook his head. "Sorry, but sensei said I only had to when you finished mastering this exercise," said Naruto, who wasn't sorry at all. "And since you're down there and I'm up here, you haven't finished it." "It's pointless," said Sasuke as he crossed his arms. "This isn't making me stronger. I need to get stronger so I can kill him. So get down here." "Taking the easy way, I see," said Naruto with a sigh. "Let me guess, you actually have to work hard at it and now you want to give up. It takes time and hard work to gain power that is worth having." Then, Sasuke did something that Naruto never expected him to do. The Uchiha reached back and pulled out 6 kunai. Without saying a word he threw them at Naruto. The wind user leaned back and rolled off the branch to avoid being hit. Now he was hovering in the air while looking at Sasuke. What was that about? "I don't want to lecture," said Sasuke, "I don't have time for it. Every second I waste with people who are only playing shinobi he gets stronger. So I'm just playing shinobi? So I'm just supposed to hand everything to you on a silver platter?" yelled Naruto. "I worked my ass off for this power. If you want to get stronger then why don't you try making your own jutsu instead of waiting for others to hand you everything?" Began Sasuke, but Naruto wasn't finished. "Besides, you're not getting stronger while Kakashi-sensei is holding me and Anko-chan back. So if you think you're better than we are based on our practices then you are wrong." "You want to put that to the test?" asked Sasuke as he cracked his knuckles. "Love to team," said Naruto as he landed on the ground. Not wasting any time, Sasuke ran right for the blonde and punched him in the face. As Naruto took a couple of steps backwards due to the force of the attack, Sasuke managed to kick him in the chest. Sasuke then leapt toward him and continued to punch him over and over again without stop. Punch in the face, this the best, punch in the gut, you, another punch in the gut, god," taunted Sasuke. He was about to punch him in the face again when Naruto's hand grabbed the other boy's fist. Naruto stared at Sasuke. A small trickle of blood came from his mouth. His left eye seemed to be half open. In a single motion he pushed Sasuke away. "Hardly," said Naruto before he shot straight up into the air. Sasuke watched him as he became nothing but a small dot. "What is that dope thinking?" asked Sasuke aloud. Naruto stopped shortly before he hit the cloud line. Once there he began his pre-fight ritual. "After all, you had to get into the right mood when you do things like this." Naruto closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He then opened his eyes and a feral smile appeared on his face. Sasuke stared at the dot that was his teammate. For a while it remained stationary. The Uchiha then began to wonder what was going on. Was his teammate going to run away? Did he have a plan? Was he going to use a long-range attack? His thoughts were then cut short when the dot began to get bigger as Naruto fell to the ground at amazing speeds. He then veered left and Sasuke lost sight of him due to the canopy that the forest created. Then, from Sasuke's right, Naruto came flying towards him like a human bullet, veering around so he didn't hit the tress. Sasuke grabbed his last kunai and threw it at Naruto. Sasuke watched it as it hit Naruto in the forehead. However, a moment later Naruto went poof. "Page Bunshin," said Sasuke with gritted teeth. Sasuke's eyes then widened right before he did a backflip to avoid another Kage Bunshin that would have hit him from behind. When he landed, he saw another clone coming from straight towards him and another coming from the left. Sasuke dodged at the last moment so that the two hit each other. Sadly, this time there was no poof but a boom instead. The force of the explosion threw Sasuke like he was a rag doll as he landed on his chest. Slowly he got up and noticed Naruto was leaning against a tree with his arms crossed. "You done yet?" he asked with a grin. "Hardly," replied Sasuke as he charged at Naruto. Naruto got off the tree and began to do some hand signs. Then he yelled, "Futon! To Tapa!" And a great explosion of wind came and swept Sasuke into the air. He landed hard on a tree with enough force to hear a bone or two break. Then next thing he saw was Naruto flying towards him feet first, aimed for his chest. When it hit, Sasuke's face was the picture of pain right before he went poof and was replaced with a log. Naruto turned around and saw Sasuke on a knee, panting hard. Then he saw Sasuke pull out some shuriken and then he threw them at him. Naruto smirked as he began to do several seals before shouting, "Futon! Kazutate!" A twister appeared around Naruto and deflected the attacks that Sasuke threw at him. "How?" asked Sasuke as Naruto's jutsu faded. "These were the first jutsus that I ever learned," replied Naruto. "I know one other, but I don't think I'll need it." "You're done." "Not yet," snarled Sasuke as he got up. He then began to perform his own hand signs and then yelled, "Katen! Kakakyu no Jutsu." Naruto saw this and yelled, "Futon! To Tapa!" Sadly, as soon as Naruto did that he remembered what happens when you use wind to fight fire. The two jutsus hit each other and caused an explosion as the fire ignited the wind. When the smoke cleared, the clearing had suddenly become a lot bigger. Sasuke was knocked out and Naruto was about to lose it as well. "Somehow I know I'm going to get in trouble for this," said Naruto as he closed his eyes. "Aidi!" cried Naruto as Anko bandaged his arm. It was now late at night and the two boys were getting their injuries treated. Naruto was in the living room with his shirt off while Tsunami helped Anko with the first aid. Kakashi was in another room upstairs while he took care of Sasuke. "Quit whining," snapped Anko. "Geez, couldn't you have just blown him up?" "Maybe," said Naruto with a smirk. "But it wouldn't have felt as good." "Aidi." Naruto turned his as far as he could to look at Tsunami who was applying alcohol to his back. "Sorry," she said. "But I don't want one of my father's bodyguards getting an infection. You'll just have to bear it for a while." "So," said Anko as she got Naruto's attention back. "What do you think Sensei will have to say about this?" The way she said Sensei sounded like it was forced and it was no surprise. Their attitude towards Kakashi had dropped and was not stopping. "Most likely he'll yell at me for harming Sasuke," said Naruto as the girls finished their work. He then grabbed his shirt and put it back on. "He might even go as far as threatening to send me back to the academy or making sure I'm kicked out of the shinobi program." "Well, if that happens I'll be right behind you," said Anko as she stood up. Naruto's face went red as he was in a very good position to see her panties, but said nothing. "If being a shinobi means having to put up with dicks like him, I say forget it. When we get back to the village I'm going to see if we can't get on another team. And why is your face red, Naruto-kun?" It was then that she realized what he was looking at. "Hentai," she yelled right before she slapped him. "What was that?" asked Sasuke when he heard Anko's voice. He then winced in pain as Kakashi applied healing gel to his wounds. This gel was the same kind that Anbu uses to heal their injured. It worked 10 times faster than anything other than a normal medical jutsu. "Nothing much," said Kakashi. "Just those two screwing around." He then finished with gelling Sasuke's arm and went for his chest. "Well, I am angry at Naruto, I am also disappointed in you. We don't have time for either of you two to take a break from your training. You should be forcing on the exercise so you can be ready for the fight ahead. What if you broke an arm or a leg?" "I never thought he was that strong," said Sasuke as he balled up his fists. "Why am I so weak?" "He shouldn't be," said Kakashi. "But there is nothing we can do about it right now. So for now just focus on the training. Now lie down and get some sleep." As Sasuke did as he was told, Kakashi turned around to leave. Sasuke laid down with his eyes wide open as he stared at the ceiling. In his mind he knew he had to do something about Naruto. Where had he learned how to do those things? He was always the dope back in the academy. Was that all an act? But then again, the academy never asked them to fight with high-level jutsus. What was it that made him so strong? Sasuke gritted his teeth as he came to one conclusion. No matter what it took he would gain the strength he needed. Even if it meant making his own jutsu. Kakashi walked down the stairs and saw that Anko was stomping Naruto. He sighed at her antics. "Alright, stop it," he said as he got their attention. Anko stopped and Naruto was covered in bumps and had swirls in his eyes. "Naruto, I want a word with you outside." Naruto only groaned as he slowly got up. Soon sensei and student were outside under the night sky. It was a clear night and the stars were shining brightly in the sky. Their reflection in the lake would make anyone sailing on it think that they were in outer space. They walked to the end of the dock and then Kakashi stopped. He then turned around and looked at Naruto for a long while. "You know what this is about, right?" asked Kakashi. "Hi," said Naruto. "But I didn't start it." "I really don't care who started it," said Kakashi. "I gave you an order. To teach him after he mastered that exercise," said Naruto as he held his ground. "Not before. And when I said as much to him he threw several kunai at me." "Listen very carefully, Naruto," said Kakashi. "The fight that you two had should never happen again. I don't want our forces hurt because of some stupid fight over a jutsu. Now I think I was being nice when I let you pick it instead of telling you which one. Why can't you understand our situation? I am unable to properly train him right now." "All you ever do is train Sasuke," Naruto said with a growl. "In case you have forgotten, there are 2 other people that you could be helping." "I have my reasons and I don't have to explain them to you," said Kakashi harshly. "If you don't like how I run things then quit." Naruto said nothing back. Wind swept around him as he lifted in the air and flew back into the forest. "Where do you think you're going? Why do you care?" shot back Naruto as he disappeared into the night. Elsewhere, at that same time, Hiashi walked into a bar about an hour away from the village. The smell was awful. Hiashi did his best not to cover his nose as he walked in. The people there were the lowest of the low. Nothing but low-class people and criminals, the kind of people that Hiashi couldn't stand. However, he was meeting someone here who could help him with his problem. "Are you Hyuga Hiashi?" asked a voice from behind him. Hiashi turned his head to see a man with yellow eyes and a veil covering his mouth. He was wearing a black cloak with red clouds on it. "Hi," said Hiashi. The figure motioned to a table in the corner. When they sat down, Hiashi could see everything in the bar, including the door. But, thanks to its position, it was covered in darkness. It was a good place to do business of this nature. "So I understand you are placing a bounty on a girl," said Kakuzu. "What did she do, run out on you?" "In a manner of speaking," said Hiashi as he pulled out a picture of Hinata he had gotten from the village file room. "This is the girl, Hinata. I want her killed and her head brought to me. I am willing to pay 99,000. "That's quite a bit of money," said Kakuzu. "I have been offered more in the past, but never for such a little girl." "Her team is on a mission right now," informed Hiashi. "They are going to be protecting ships that belong to the Nami shipping group from pirates. This would be the perfect time to attack as long as you make it look like a pirate attack." Hiashi then took out a piece of paper and placed it on the table. "This tells the name of the ship, its course, and destination." "I see," said Kakuzu as he picked up the paper. "I see this a lot. People know you have issues with the target and you would be the most likely suspect if something were to happen to her. Well, I think I can manage that. However, it will cost extra." "How much?" asked Hiashi. "An extra 100,000, said Kakuzu. "You see, I know of a couple of people who would be very useful for this kind of thing." "I thought I was hiring you," said Hiashi as he narrowed his eyes. Kakuzu laughed. "If an S-rank Nukenin was seen killing this girl they would be able to trace it back to you," said Kakuzu. "Don't worry, I have seen them take care of several other people. I'm sure they can take down one Genin and her teammates if they get in the way." Hiashi sighed. "Very well," he said as he rose. 199,000, then I see her head." With that the head of the Hyuga clan left for the door and was gone. Kakuzu smirked under his mask. This was the easiest bounty that was ever offered to him. The Akatsuki's funds were looking well thanks to him. Now all he had to do was contact Hoshigaki Hisam and Michi. While they were both only 14, they were well trained and eager to help out in any way. Best of all, they were only ranked as C-class Nukenins, so that it wouldn't look too suspicious to see them in an act of piracy. It was morning the next day as a small boat floated in the sea. In the boat was a dirty-looking man with a black beard, a captain's hat, and a compass that didn't point north. There was a heavy fog on the surface that was so thick you couldn't see more than several feet ahead of you. "Where's the rum?" he muttered to himself. But this man plays no part in the story. He just got lost and accidentally crossed over into the wrong fanfic. "I don't like the sound of that," said Captain Jack as he looked at what was just written. Suddenly, a large ship came into view. It was one of the ships that belonged to the Nami shipping group. A moment later it rammed into the smaller boat. On the deck were Kibo along with Akamaru, Shino, and Hinata. They had just left the port and were now waiting for their sensei to get down talking to the head of the Nami group. About after 20 minutes of talking, Kurenai came out of the captain's quarters along with a Nami sailor named Ryumaru. He was a balding man dressed in a simple brown kimono. His eyes looked like they were closed and smiling at you that gave him a friendly appearance. "Don't worry about a thing, Nami-san," said Kurenai as she presented her team to their employer. "My team can handle this mission." "You sure seem confident, Yuhi-san," said Ryumaru. He then looked at Kiba for a moment. "Please make sure you clean up after your pup and keep him out of the storage room." "Understand." "Hi," said Kiba as Akamaru barked in agreement. Ryumaru nodded and then looked at Shino. "You seem serious enough," he said. "But can see well enough in those glasses." "Hi," said Shino in an emotionless voice. Ryumaru nodded again and then looked at Hinata and stopped. He seemed to be slightly nervous as he stared at her eyes for a while. He then turned to Kurenai. "I was never told there was a Hyuga with you," he said sternly. "Is there a problem with that?" asked Kurenai sharply. No, said Ryumaru as he waved his hands. "You see, some of my customers would like their shipments to remain private. It's like the mail, you wouldn't want someone peeking in letters, would you? I have a reputation to maintain. If my customers thought that I was looking and going through their shipments, then I would lose my business." "I understand your concern," said Kurenai. "Hinata was disowned from her clan years ago, so that is why you are just finding out now. As for your shipments, my students will not be going anywhere near them unless they have to." "That's the best I can hope for," said Ryumaru with a sigh. He then turned to the genins again. "The shipment that you are protecting is very important. The crates below are being shipped to some of the nobles, as well as several shops on the island. This trip will last about 6 days. On day 5 we should be able to see Yuzu no Kuni. Once that happens we will be in the clear." "Why's that?" asked Kiba. "Have you never heard of Yuzu no Kuni?" asked Ryumaru. Kiba shook his head. "Years ago, QB no Kitsune attacked and destroyed it." A gasp was heard from both Kiba and Hinata. Shino just looked the same. After the attack was over, the plants began to die and the soil was deprived of all its nutrients. This left the survivors in a wasteland. Those who survived either moved to Hai no Kuni or Mizu no Kuni. While the land is empty, it is believed that those who venture too close will be cursed. "Then why are we going in that direction?" demanded Kiba. "Because it's rubbish," said Ryumaru. "The only people who believe that are idiots. But, must people prefer to be safe than sorry?" With that he turned and walked back to the captain's quarters. It looked like it was going to be a long trip. In Nami no Kuni, Kakashi had just gotten up and was making his way down the stairs. When he made his way down he went into the kitchen and saw Tsunami. She was washing some dishes in the sink. Kakashi moved to the table and saw that there were 2 plates with breakfast still on them. "Where is everyone?" he asked as he started on his meal. "Du-san left early with Anko-san," said Tsunami without turning around. "Sasuke-san is left to go training. Inari is up in his room right now." "I see," said Kakashi as he fished his meal. He then got up and moved to the door. "He never came back last night," said Tsunami, which stopped Kakashi dead in his tracks. "Just in case you were wondering." Kakashi said nothing as he continued walking out the door. Elsewhere, deep in the forest area, Naruto was just finishing with his warm-ups. They consisted of push-ups, sit-ups, and punches. Now he was pumped up to train. After his argument with Kakashi, Naruto flew around while trying to cool down. That proved difficult knowing that his sensei had more authority. And while in the past Naruto usually gave people like that the finger, he was now a shinobi and considered an adult. But he'd be damned if he just gave Sasuke something that he had to work out on his own. Then an idea came to him. What if he created a better version of one of the jutsus that he learned from the scrolls and then gave Sasuke the weaker one? It would be like the Senpuken, a jutsu that didn't need seals and something that only a person who had his level of wind manipulation could use. Now, here he was. Deciding on which jutsu to upgrade. He sat down on the ground and began to think of the Senpuken and its flaws. It made a decent shield, but only from a single attack coming right against him. If he were to face multiple enemies then it would be useless. The memory of what happened with the Demon Brothers was proof that he did need a strong defense that could be put up quickly. Then there was the issue of range. Naruto needed to be up close to use the Senpuken. He had a few jutsus that could help in those situations, but nothing as powerful. Naruto thought about it for a while and then came to a decision. He would flip a coin. Heads would be offense and tails would be defense. He pulled a coin out of his pocket and tossed it into the air and caught it. He then looked down and saw it had landed on tails. "One problem done," said Naruto to himself. Now he needed to figure out how he was going to do it. Naruto closed his eyes as he remembered how he created the Senpuken. He used the motion of his arm to help rotate the wind around his arm and then added some chakra to increase the speed, keep its form, and to keep it spinning. That was it in a nutshell. There were more complicated details of course, but they were very complicated. With that in mind, Naruto started to think of the right way to generate wind that could protect him like the Kazutate did. Spinning each of his arms and legs seemed silly and stupid. Then he thought of something else, a powerful updraft that would send any attack straight up. The only problem was that if the attack was moving fast enough it could get past the attack. The more Naruto thought about it, the more he came to realize that there was only one way to do this. He had to spin his whole body. Naruto stood up as got ready. He focused his wind chakra around his body and then began to spin. The air began to turn, but soon lost its form and was sent out in every direction. A second later Naruto fell down due to dizziness. "This'll be harder than I thought," he said aloud. "I have to focus on the shape while spinning and not get dizzy. If I don't, the jutsu will fail and I'll be a sitting duck." Naruto then slowly pulled himself up and got ready again. "Let's try that again." It was several days later when Kakashi came back to the house to find Naruto sitting at the table eating like there was no tomorrow. The blonde was covered in dirt and smelled like he hadn't bathed in a while. On the other side of the table was a pissed off Anko. Judging by the lumps on the boy's head, Anko had given him his welcome back present. Sasuke was brooding over his meal. "I thought you quit," said Kakashi as he took a seat. Naruto stopped eating and glared at his sensei. "Who the hell said I quit?" asked Naruto. "I just went out to train because your method sucks." A tick mark appeared on Kakashi's head. Naruto went back to eating when Inari entered the room. "Why do you all do it?" shouted Inari as he stood in the doorway of the kitchen. "What you are doing is pointless. Gato will just kill you no matter what you do." Naruto stopped eating. "So, what's life without risks?" he asked. "The odds are against us, so what? Like hell I'm going to fail on my first real mission." "That attitude of yours is really pissing me off," swore Inari. "What do you know about us? You think it's easy living like this? You think a little bit of training can help us after all Gato has done to us? No matter what you do, he can't be beaten. So there's no point in trying." Naruto lowered his head so that a shadow covered his face. Slowly the room became colder as he fought to keep his killing intent at bay. "You're right," said Naruto as he slowly got up. He pushed in his chair and headed for the door. "I don't know what you have gone through. It must have been tough." But Naruto was now right in front of Inari as he lifted his head. Now Inari could see the rage in his eyes. "You don't know shit about me. You think you're the only person who has ever suffered. Trust me, there have been people who have had to deal with much worse with much less. You still have your mother and grandfather. So stop being a crybaby and do something or stay out of the way." With that, Naruto went to the door and left. Inari, after a moment, left as well. Later that night, Anko found the boy on the roof. She walked over to him and stood behind him. "Well, you got off easy," she said with a smirk. "Trust me, I've known that blonde since forever. I remember the first time we meet. One of the teachers threw hot water all over him when he went to make his lunch." Inari turned his head to look at Anko while she continued with her story. His skin was bright red and his clothing was damp. Almost all the other kids were laughing at him. But you know, despite how bad his first day was, he went right back there the next day. Hell, he even got back at the teacher who did that to him. With my help, of course. He was right about you not being the only one who is suffering. I'm a descendant of a famous traitor to my village, and so the villagers don't treat me so well. And I don't have any parents to go home to. Naruto-kun is in a similar boat. The villagers hate him twice as much as they hate me. I don't know why they hate him, but I have never seen him give up trying. In spite of everything that has ever happened to him, he is still willing to put his life on the line for them. I guess that's what I really like about him." Anko then started to move away from Inari. "And that's why he hates people who just give up just because it looks hopeless. We both do." And with that, she left Inari out in the night. All alone. Aku was in a field looking for herbs while wearing her bright pink yukata. Her hair was undone as well. She was looking for something to help Zabuza with some stomach pain he was having. At least Gato had a much worse reaction to her cooking. After eating one bite of it he was rushed to the emergency room to have his stomach pumped. "Well, Zabuza-sama did warn him not to eat it," said Haku with a sigh as she continued to walk. "Maybe I should take some lessons someday." They then began to brighten up. "Then, Zabuza-sama will love my cooking. He'll love it so much that when he becomes the Mizuki I'll be his private chief." She then stopped in a clearing that looked like a disaster zone. Large pieces of earth looked like they had been pulled out, thrown into the air, and then dropped back to the ground. Almost all the flowers seemed to bend away from the center where a blonde boy lay sleeping. Haku slowly walked over to the boy to examine him. Her eyes widened in surprise when she saw that it was the flying boy. She took a deep breath as she tried to decide on what she should do. Kill him and take the weapon. But what if he didn't have it on him? Also, didn't Zabuza mention that he might also want the boy for his special ability? But then again, he did shock him. She should kill him for that alone. But then again. HHHHH. Screamed Haku as she clenched her head. I don't know what to do. Try keeping it down, mumbled Naruto in his sleep. Haku looked at him while her eye twitched and tick marks appeared on her face and fist. Wake up. She yelled while punching him in the air. A few moments later, Haku was bowing before Naruto who was in a sitting position. I am so sorry. I don't usually lose my temper like that. I just have a lot on my mind and I'm worried about someone I care about. No problem, said Naruto with a grin. I've gotten worse. You can call me Naruto by the way. I am called Haku, said Haku as she rose to her feet. So did you do all of this? Hi, said Naruto with pride as he got up. He then looked confused as Haku began to look on the ground for something. Lose something. No, I'm looking for an herb that's supposed to grow in this area, replied Haku. Have you seen a brownish plant that looks like a twig but with buds? Naruto folded his arms as he got into a thinking pose. Hi, he said after a while. Really? Where? Asked Haku. Don't worry Zabuza-sama. Once I get this herb your stomach pains will be gone. As well as that rash. It was over there, said Naruto as he pointed to where he had been laying. The ground there was brown and smooth with no vegetation on it at all. Haku's jaw dropped when she saw this and Naruto rubbed the back on his head in embarrassment. Looks like I chose the wrong area to work on my new jutsu. Sorry about that. Haku sighed. I guess it can't be helped, she said. She then turned to him. So, why are you making a jutsu? It's my training, said Naruto with pride. I'm trying to get stronger so I can one day reach my dream of being Hokage. I see, said Haku. But, do you have any precious people? What are those? Asked Naruto. They are people who are the most important to you, replied Haku. They are people you want to protect and become stronger and better for. Naruto closed his eyes as he began to think of Hinata, Anko, Haruka, Sarutobi, and even Hanzo. Seeing the look on his face, Haku smiled. I think you understand Naruto-san. And with that she left. Wake up Naruto-kun. Screamed Anko at the boy. Last night Naruto had come back late and had fallen asleep the second he walked through the door. Tsunami had gotten him in bed but was confused by the large grin on his face. And here they were the next morning, trying to get him out of bed. Free Raymond. Still, not a stir. Well, he's not getting up. It doesn't matter, said Kakashi, who was now fully healed. Just leave him here for now. We have a bridge to guard. With that Sasuke, Anko, and Kakashi left with Tazuna towards the bridge. Remember the plan? Asked Zabuza. Hi Zabuza-sama, answered Haku. Good, this is our last chance with Geto, and we need the money, said Zabuza. Just you wait Kakashi. I'm going to stick this sword of mine right up your ass for what you did to me. That would be unpleasant, said Haku. For the sword I mean. It was early morning on the seas near the Land of Whirlpools, also known as Land of Uzumaki Clan. A fog lay across the seas like a blanket making it hard to see anything. This pissed off one person in particular. Is that their ship? Asked Hisam as she squinted through her telescope. She was the 14-year-old niece of Kisame. Like her uncle, she had blue skin and slit marks on her cheeks. Her long black hair was braided down her back. Her light green outfit reminded people of a belly dancer's outfit as it was nearly see-through pants that only hide her more sensitive parts and her top only covered her breasts. Her body was slim so it looked really good on her. On her sides were the swords that once belonged to Kurisuke Uraiga, who she had helped kill. Her hit-8 was slashed and was worn on her head. Hi, said her partner Michi. She was the younger sister of Deidara. Her hair had been dyed mix of white with a few black streaks and she wore it like her brother did. Her eyes were a light blue color. She was slender and a bit tall for her age going about 5 inches above Hisam. She was wearing a light brown long sleeve shirt with the left sleeve missing and skirt that stopped at her knees. She wore her slashed hit-8 around her neck. The two girls were on a ship waiting to ambush their unsuspecting prey. The ship wasn't large, but it wasn't small either. It was designed for both speed and holding large amounts of cargo, perfect for pirates. The two girls had relieved the previous captain of this ship and had taken over as the new captain and first mate. On the main deck were at least 4 dozen pirates, their swords drawn, ready to fight. All right you filthy sea dogs, said Hisam as she got into the part. We will be raiding that tar ship over yonder. You can keep whatever booty you find, but leave the genin to us. A pirate raised his hand as if he were in the classroom. What is it? Ah, we don't talk like that, said the pirate. The others began to nod and Hisam's sweat dropped. Say what? Asked a dumbfounded Hisam. Well you see we all went to college, said the same pirate. We all are graduates of the University of Mizu. But we couldn't get jobs due to companies outsourcing. So a bunch of us got together and decided to build a boat and take people on cruises and stuff like that. But that failed and that left us with nothing but the boat. So, we became pirates. As it turns out, even this world has a problem with outsourcing. I heard that genin teams always have a jonin sensei. Why do we have to fight the jonin? asked a different pirate. Before Hisom could say anything, Michi grabbed her shoulder and stepped forward. I believe I can give you a good reason, as she pulled out a shinobi trading card out from behind her back. This one was brand new and had one of the newest jonins on it. She tossed it into the pirate crowd and one of them caught it. Take a look and tell me if you are still afraid to fight her. The pirates looked confused. What could be on this card that would make them want to fight a jonin? So, out of curiosity they looked down at the picture of Kurenai. The results were immediate, seeing that most of them had little contact with women in their age group for some time. Holy shit. She's hot. Do you think there is anything under those bindings? She's so hot that I would let her kick my ass anytime. Why couldn't she be a he? A moment later the person who said that was thrown overboard. Needless to say, it was clear what part of their bodies these pirates were thinking with. So, said Michi with a smug look on her face. Will you fight? There. Roared the pirates as they began to get ready. Good, said Michi with a pleased smile. Then set sail for the boat belonging to the Nami shipping group. You heard the lady, said one of the pirates as he took command over the others. Make sail while the wind be at our backs. Meanwhile, Kiba and Akamaru were watching Hinata. Her elbows were supporting her as she leaned over the railing, watching the waves hit the boat. The wind would blow through her hair, but she didn't seem to notice. But this sight did cause drool to escape Kiba's mouth. This was it, the perfect place to tell her how he felt and win her heart over that baka Naruto. Alright buddy, are you ready? Asked Kiba. Akamaru, who was on Kiba's head, made a whining sound. I know she likes Naruto. But that is no reason why I should just give up. I deserve her, not the ramen-loving dope. Just think about what life would be like once she becomes my mate. Akamaru closed his eyes and began to picture what his master had asked. He saw an older Hinata in a civilian dress and apron feeding him a bone. Then the dog saw her brushing his fur while humming. Then he imagined using Hinata's lap like a bed to take a nap while she gently stroked his head. In the end, Akamaru barked, which translated into let's do this commando style. Slowly and as casually as he could, Kiba walked over to Hinata. Hey Hinata-chan, said Kiba. Hinata turned her head and smiled at Kiba. Good morning Kiba-kun, she said as she straightened up. Did you sleep well? Hi, said Kiba as he looked nervous. He then gulped. It was now or never. Listen, I was, wondering if after this mission you would like to. Attack. Attack, finished Kiba. He then blinked. What? Who said attack? They then heard clanking sounds from all around. A moment later pirates began to crawl over the railing. Kiba and Hinata backed away slowly as more and more showed up. A second later, Shino and Kurenai ran towards them run the other side of the ship along with Ryumaru. What are they doing here? Demanded Ryumaru. It appears they are here to engage in an act of piracy, said Shino in his normal tone. I know that, said Ryumaru, who looked like he was about to die from a heart attack. But they shouldn't be here. Pirates, stay clear from this area, since we are close to Yuzu no Kuni. Why did you not prevent this? Kurenai sighed as the bald man was getting on her nerves. Kiba, why didn't you smell them coming? Asked Kurenai. It must be all the moisture in the air, said Kiba as he looked around. But don't worry, we can handle these guys. No, said Kurenai. I'll take care of these guys. I want you, Shino, and Hinata to escort our client and the rest of the crew to the storage room and keep them safe. But sensei, shouldn't we help you and get this over with? Asked Kiba. We have been training hard for this moment. We can handle this. Kurenai bit her lip. What he was saying was true. They could handle and they needed the experience. However, the crew might get caught in the crossfire or used as a hostage. Then there was the second mission. She had to make sure Hinata got to the island or else it would be a failure. She could only imagine the smug look on Hiashi's face when he found out that Hinata was dead. He would use it to say that he was right all along, that Hinata was useless. Like hell she was going to let that happen. So, she wasn't going to take any chances. That's an order Kiba, said Kurenai as she pulled out her kunai. Our mission is to make sure that the cargo gets to the island. So, I want you to protect the crew and the cargo in the same room. So go now. Kiba gulped and nodded. Hinata was a bit taken back by her sensei's outburst. Shino was Shino. The three of them then turned around and began to take the crew down to the lower deck where the cargo was held. Little did they know that on one side of the ship two girls were grinning. This sucks, said Kiba. His arms were crossed as he leaned against a giant crate. It wasn't fair. They hadn't trained as hard as they did just to be told to go hide while the adult handled things. I believe there is some logic to this, said Shino. Kiba, your fighting style isn't suited for areas that have a limited amount of dry surface. This would cause unnecessary worry and thus impact the team's performance. That is why we are here. So you're saying that this is my fault? Demanded Kiba as he straightened up. Is that what you're saying? Hi, said Shino. You're brash and illogical. Had you fought with Shikyaku no Jutsu you would have a much higher risk of falling overboard. Such an action would cause us to become distracted and could lead to the failure of this mission. Kiba stormed over to Shino and grabbed him by the collar. In response, Shino ordered his bugs to come out of his sleeves. Thick marks were beginning to appear on Hinata's head. So far she had been trying to watch the fight that was going on with her Byakugan while her teammates bickered. The pirates, she had noticed, seemed highly motivated and they were giving Kurenai a little bit of difficulty. Not much, but some. Slowly, Hinata began to count to 10 and tried to tune Kiba and Shino out. Those two were exact opposites. Kiba was like a wild animal at times. He followed his instincts more than anything else. Saying the wrong thing could set him off. Shino was calmer and more logical. He rarely spoke to anyone unless he had no other choice or felt he had to clear something up. Sadly, he lacked people skills. Then, something happened that sent Hinata over the edge. "Girl," said Rimaru when he noticed the veins near her eyes. "Turn those eyes off. If you are trying to peek at the goods then I will inform the Hokage that." He never finished that sentence. His sudden quiet caused Kiba and Shino to let go of each other and look at their female teammate. Akamaru jumped off his master's head and hid behind a box. She was pissed. Flames seemed to dance in her lavender eyes. Her teeth were gritted tightly. What made her look even scarier was that her Byakugan was still activated. The two Genins had only seen this once before and that was about a year ago. It was back in academy and Anko had somehow gotten Hinata to go on a blind date. Turned out she set Hinata up with Sasuke. Hinata was steamed by what Anko had done, but she lost it when Sasuke said that he didn't want to waste his time with a weak loser who had been kicked out of her clan. The next thing he knew was that he had a broken nose and two black eyes. If you can't figure out why Anko did that, please go back and reread this story. "Would you all shut up?" she screamed. "I'm trying to watch the fight that our sensei is in. So would you two mind putting your egos in check? And I don't care what your shipment." She stopped then and began to stare at two things. While she had been watching the fight she had focused all her attention on her sensei and nothing else. However, looking at them she was able to see through them and what was behind them. Behind the three of them were the crates and she was now looking at what was inside them. For the most part it was things like silk, cotton, and other goods. However, there were fake bottoms and placed under them were sacks of white powder. But what really concerned Hinata was what was outside the ship. Katsu. With that, a section of the hull exploded. It created a small hole that was big enough for one or two people to step through. Luckily for teammate the hole was a few feet above the water. However, the two girls who were standing on the water were a problem. They stepped into the ship and then scanned the room before their eyes landed on Hinata. "There she is," said Hisamu as she pulled out her swords. "Michi, why don't you sit this one out?" "Got a lot of pent-up bloodlust?" asked Michi. Before Hisamu could answer, Kiba threw a kunai at them but missed. The girls turned their attention at them and groaned. Her teammates were there as well. This meant they would have to kill them as well. Then, Michi noticed Shino. Well, a member of the Abumer clan. "Back home, I had a friend from the Kamizuru clan who spoke about your clan." She then turned her eyes to look at her partner. "I'd better fight him." Hisamu looked at Shino, then at Kiba, and then back to Shino. "But I like guys with black hair," whined Hisamu. "I'm being nice here," argued Michi. "I wanted to blow the ship up, but you wanted to fight. So I at least get to choose who I kill." "The reason I didn't want to blow up the ship was because we might lose the head," said Hisamu as she pointed at Hinata. "We need that silly-looking girl's head to get the bounty. If we blow the ship up we run the risk of losing the body to the currents. Do you want Senpai to be angry with us?" Michi was about to say something when she saw a swarm of bugs coming towards them. Michi jumped to the right while Hisamu lunged to the left. When Michi landed, she saw a very feral-looking Kiba on all fours. Shino seemed to command the bugs to move towards her. "Let's make this quick," said Kiba. He then yelled Shikyaku no Jutsu and shot at her at an incredible speed. Sadly for him it didn't work as Michi jumped up and did a backflip in the air as Kiba zoomed under her. "I bet you say that to all the ladies," said Michi when she landed. Something then caused her to look down and saw that bugs had begun to crawl up her legs. "You should keep your eyes on your opponent," said Shino. "In case you forgot, there are two of us." "I didn't forget," said Michi from behind Shino just before she delivered a roundhouse kick to his back. "And you should listen to your own advice." Shino was confused. How did she get behind him? He looked up from the floor and saw that his bugs were on a clay replica of her. "Clay?" he asked. Hisamu licked her lips. In front of her was the target. She was just staring at her with her Byakugan activated calmly. Hisamu loved it when her prey fought back. It made things so much more fun in the end. "What an unlucky girl you are," said Hisamu as she readied herself to fight. "Don't know what you did, but you sure pissed someone off." "You mean you don't know who hired you?" asked Hinata. Hisamu shook her head. "Nah," said the shark girl. "Senpai met with our client and then told us what to do." A lot of money just to kill one little genin, but what the hell. She then grinned, showing her pointed teeth to Hinata. Sorry if you were trying to fish information out of me. Not that it matters because you'll be dead soon. She then rushed at Hinata with such force the wooden floorboards broke when she began. Hinata stayed where she was, which confused Hiruzen. What the hell is the matter with her, thought Hiruzen. Does she think she can stop me? Is she so scared she can't move? Whatever the case, she's dead. Now, Hiruzen was in front of Hinata. With both swords she made a scissor motion aimed at Hinata's neck. However, Hinata vanished before she could finish. What the she was then interrupted as Hinata appeared at her side and kneed her in the chest. In case you are wondering, said Hinata after she took a few steps back. That was called shunpo. And I am not some weak little girl who will just die. I see, said Hiruzen as she stood up straight. Her lips were curved into a huge grin. That makes this so much better. I don't want this to be over quickly. She then brought her sword close tighter above her head. One way or another I will win. And you'll see why soon enough. Raikyu. A ball of lightning formed between the blades, and then it was flung at Hinata, who dodged it with ease. The ball hit the wall and went right through it. Hinata saw the hole without turning around. Let me guess, said Hinata as she got into a stance. It's win-win for you. If one of those blasts hits me, I'm done for. And if they don't, they damage the ship until it sinks. Since you can walk on water, you'll be fine and it'll make it easier for you. Hi, said Hiruzen. Not only that, I can breathe underwater. In this fight, I have all the advantages. That is, said Hinata, unless I can beat you before you can do enough damage. Stop her before she sinks this ship, begged Ryumaru. I can't let my cargo be destroyed. I'll be ruined. I have a feeling you'll be ruined anyways, muttered Hinata. Hiruzen then raised her swords again and yelled, Raikyu. Hinata used shunpo to dodge the attack. Then, to Hiruzen's surprise, Hinata used shunpo to appear in 3 places at once. One above her left shoulder, one in front of her stomach, and the last behind her. The 3 seemed to launch a simultaneous attack at each spot, delivered by a kick. Well, that was what it looked like. In reality, Hinata was moving so fast that it only looked like she was at 3 spots at once. She landed a few feet away from Hiruzen before the shark girl fell. Hinata was now panting a bit. Despite how well she was with the shunpo, doing something like that was a bit harder and more demanding. Also, she was nowhere near the level Yuruchi was. At most, Hinata could use shunpo maybe 90 times a day, while Yuruchi could do 300. That wasn't bad at all, said Hiruzen, causing Hinata to gasp. Using her swords to help support her, Hiruzen stood back up. Hinata could see the bruises from her last attack. They were a dark purple on the blue skin of the shark girl. A thin trickle of blood was coming out of Hiruzen's mouth. Not bad at all. But how? Asked Hinata. I'm a bit harder to take down than I look, said Hiruzen. Then she did something no one expected. Hiruzen flung her swords at Hinata. Hiruzen watched as they impaled Hinata's chest and sent her flying into the wall where they stuck to it like darts. Game over. When Team 7 arrived at the bridge with Tazuna, they found it to be empty. The only thing that they saw was mist and some equipment. Where are all my men? Asked Tazuna aloud. That would be my fault, said the voice of Zabuza as the mist cleared. Standing next to him was Haku with her mask on. They ran away the moment they saw me. Once they left, it gave me some time to do some reading. With that, he pulled out the Icha Paradise book he had stolen from Kakashi and began to read it. So it was you who stole my precious, said Kakashi as he narrowed his eye at Zabuza. This had been the longest he had ever gone without his porn and was going into withdrawal. You'll pay for that. The only thing I have had to read was a pamphlet showing how to give yourself a breast exam. Everyone's sweat dropped at that. I think you have bigger problems to worry about, said Zabuza as he turned the page of the book. Sure enough, Team 7 was now surrounded by Mizubunshians. Pity the only skill genin you have is missing. The kid in blue is shaking in fear. I'm not shaking in fear, corrected Sasuke with a tick mark on his head. I'm shaking from excitement. Do it, Sasuke, said Kakashi. A moment later all the Mizubunshians were destroyed. But it wasn't by Sasuke. Anko pulled back her arm and her Yurumi came back to her. Could we please focus? Asked Anko. Sasuke gritted his teeth. He had wanted to destroy those clones. How dare his teammates show him up? An impressive weapon, said Zabuza as he closed the book and put it in his pocket. The blade on your sword is as thin and as flexible as possible. This allows you to control every movement of the sword, with training of course. And due to its length you have a good range. He then looked at Haku. Haku, be careful around her. She might have a few other surprises up her sleeve. Hi Zabuza-sama, said Haku. Here's the plan, said Kakashi to his teammates as he kept his eye on Zabuza. Sasuke, I want you to take out that Oinin. I'll take Zabuza. Anko, you stay here and guard Tazuna. Growled Anko. Fine, but if I see Sasuke go down I'm jumping in. Whatever, said Kakashi as he and Sasuke jumped to fight their own battles. Sasuke pulled out his kunai and was met by Haku's Senbon needle. Sasuke pulled back and tried to attack again but was blocked. Then he heard his opponent sigh. It wasn't a normal sigh, but one of boredom. "Is something wrong?" asked Sasuke as he put some more power into his attack. "I was hoping to fight the blonde or your purple-haired teammate," said Haku. "I have a score to settle with Naruto-san for the injury he inflicted on my master. The purple-haired one seems to have some skills as well. You just seem to be average." Sasuke couldn't help but get pissed at that. But something she said caught his attention. She knew Naruto's name, but not Anko's. Had she been spying on him or something? He didn't have time to wonder as his opponent stopped going on the defensive and started her attack. Sasuke was able to block her swings and soon they were at a stalemate. "Looks like a draw," said Sasuke. "Hardly," said Haku. "I have 3 advantages over you. The first happens to be that one of your arms is tied up so you can't make any seals. The second is that I don't share your limitations. And finally, we are surrounded by water." With that, she began to make hand signs with one hand. Sasuke's eyes widened in shock and in fear. Sensetsu Sushu. Water from the ground then began to rise into the air and formed into needles. They surround the two of them and then shoot towards them. Sasuke used what he learned from his training and used a lot of chakra to push him away from the attack in time. "It will take more than that to bring me down," said Sasuke. Haku stared at him for a moment before shaking her head. "Baka," she said. "It looks like I'll have to up my game a bit." She then began to make some hand signs as she continued to talk. "If you thought that my last attack was my best, you are sorely mistaken. Makam Haim Shm. The water began to take the form of mirrors made of ice. They seemed to be suspended in the air as they surround the Uchiha. Then, to Sasuke's surprise, Haku walked into one of them. Soon her image appeared on all of them. "Oh shit," said Sasuke. There was a knock on the door and a moment later Tsunami answered it. On the other side of the door were 2 of Gato's bodyguards. "Well, it looks like Tazuna has one hot daughter," said one of them. The other one grabbed Tsunami's arm. "You're coming with us," he said loudly. "Ah-san," cried Inari who was standing at the top of the stairs. He had left his room to see what the noise was about. "Should we get the kid?" asked the first. The second shook his head. "Good, then I can cut him up." "Don't you dare touch him," said Tsunami. "Lady, you are in no position to tell us to do anything," said the second bodyguard. "You need a hostage, right?" asked Tsunami. "If you kill him I'll bite my tongue and kill myself." The first guy groaned. "Fine," he said as he turned around. "You're a lucky brat to have a mom like this. Maybe Gato will give her back after he's done with her." "Not likely," snickered the other. "Remember what he did to I. Had her sent to the red light district and killed her when she stopped bringing in the customers." With that they walked out the door with Tsunami, laughing all the way. Inari fell to his knees and began to cry. What could he do? He wasn't strong enough to fight those guys. And even if he did somehow manage to beat them, Gato would just send more. It was hopeless. Flashback. "You don't know shit about me. You think you're the only person who has ever suffered. Trust me, there have been people who have had to deal with much worse with much less. You still have your mother and grandfather. So stop being a crybaby and do something or stay out of the way." Then flashback. Flashback. "He was right about you not being the only one who is suffering. I'm a descendant of a famous traitor to my village and so the villagers don't treat me so well. And I don't have any parents to go home to. Naruto-kun is in a similar boat. The villagers hate him twice as much as they hate me. I don't know why they hate him, but I have never seen him give up trying. In spite of everything that has ever happened to him, he is still willing to put his life on the line for them. I guess that's what I really like about him." Anko then started to move away from Inari. "And that's why he hates people who just give up just because it looks hopeless. We both do." And with that, she left Inari out in the night. All alone. Then flashback. Slowly Inari got to his knees. Something about their words triggered something in him. If what they said was true then he had to do something. He had to act. Inari ran down the stairs and threw open the door. "Give me back my Kasan," he screamed. The 2 guards turned around and groaned. "What a pest," said the first. "Let's just kill him," and he stopped there as someone else walked out the door. It was the blonde shinobi. He looked half awake as he walked past Inari and went straight for the water. He got down on his knees and stuck his hands in the water before slashing his face. "I'm awake," Naruto cheered. He then turned to Inari. "What's with all the noise?" "I was trying to sleep." Everyone, including Tsunami, was eye-twitching at the fact that he was that clueless. "We'd better kill him," said the first guy. "Yeah, put him out of his misery," said the other. Then, he noticed that the feel of Tsunami's skin had changed. It was rougher. He looked over and saw that he was holding Naruto. "What the hell?" "Boom," said the clone right before it exploded. The 2 thugs didn't stand a chance. What just happened?" asked a confused Inari. Nobody is that clueless, said Naruto. When I put my hands in the water I was really making hand signs. I made one of my special clones who switched places with your Kasan. Naruto stopped and looked around a bit before pointing at a tree a few yards away from where the clone had exploded. There she is. Inari looked and sure enough, there was his mother. Thank you, said Inari as he fell to his knees. Then, he felt Naruto put his hand on his head. You did well, said Naruto. Even if it was just telling them off, doing something is better than nothing. Naruto then took his hand off Inari's head and took a few steps before turning around and grinning. Well, I better be going. Something tells me that my team needs me. But it's a long way to the bridge, said Inari. You'll never make it there in time. Naruto's grin turned into a smirk as powerful winds lifted him in the air. I think I'll make it, said Naruto right before he shot into the sky towards the bridge. At least, he hoped it was in the direction of the bridge. After 5 minutes of not having a clue in hell where he was, he finally found the bridge. He squinted as he tried to see through the mist, but all he could see were some mirrors. Naruto hovered in the air cross-legged as he tried to decide what to do. He couldn't see a thing thanks to that mist, so he might hit a friend. But, the odds of that happening were low seeing that the only friend he had down there was Anko. It would be nice to hit Kakashi, but then who would deal with Zabuza seeing that he was the only one he knew who could create a mist like that? Oh well, said Naruto as he straightened up. What's life without risks? But, I better bring some backup. With that, he bit his thumb and put a drop of blood on the back of each hand. He then made several hand signs before yelling, Kuchius no Jutsu. There were 2 puffs of smoke, and when they cleared they revealed 2 fire salamanders, one on each of Naruto's arms. They were a dark red color with tiny black eyes. Their heads stared at Naruto's wrist, and their bodies ended at his elbow with their tails stopping a few inches from his shoulders. Naruto Nyasan, said Hinata on Naruto's right. What's going on? We're too high up to play. Baka, said Ensho who was on Naruto's left. He summoned us to help him fight. What? Cried Hinata. But we haven't played in a while. Sorry about that, said Naruto. I've been a bit busy. Well I'm not fighting till we play a game, said Hinata. What the hell you little gaki, said Ensho. He summoned us because he needs us. That means he might need that jutsu we worked on a while back. I wanna play, whined Hinata. Well this is like a game, said Naruto. Hinata looked up at Naruto and gave him a puppy dog pout. Really? Asked the childish Hinata. Hi, said Naruto. You two are on my team. In order to win, we have to beat up the other team. They only have 2 people on their team. One is a guy with no eyebrows with a large sword and the other is a guy in a mask. If we win, I'll take us out for ice cream. Hinata's eyes widened at the sound of his favorite food. You don't need to bribe me Naruto-sama, said Ensho as he backed up a bit. Hinata took the hint and backed up a bit as well. Fighting is what I live for. Good, said Naruto as his right arm began to spin. Now let's have some fun. Senpuken. Sasuke was now covered with needles. His opponent seemed to be able to move at high speeds between the mirrors. He had tried his Kaiten Jutsu, but it couldn't. I believe it is time to end this, said Haku as she readied herself for another attack. Before I kill you, you should know my name. I am Uzumaki Haku. Sasuke froze. Did you say Uzumaki? Asked Sasuke. The Uzumaki clan can do this. No, said Haku. My mother's clan could. She then noticed Sasuke breathe a sigh of relief. You know of the Uzumaki clan, don't you? I thought I was the last one. Hi, said Sasuke, I know one. And he happens to be. Before Sasuke could finish that sentence, a crack appeared on the top mirror that seemed to grow quickly followed by powerful winds. That can't be good, said Haku a moment before the mirror was destroyed by Naruto's Senpuken. The winds hit the ground and threw Sasuke against a mirror where he hit his head and passed out. Naruto landed on the ground and saw the damage he caused. He then raised his fist and stared at it. This is so cool, he said. I bet the Senpuken can smash through anything. He then saw the mirror reform and looked at one of the Hakus. Ready for round 2. This was part 1, for the next part, subscribe to my channel and check out my playlist. For now, you guys should watch this video, I will see you there.